recording. We will be recording today's webinar. If you do not wish to participate in the recorded webinar, you do need to log off now. By participating, you are giving your consent to record today. Good morning, everyone. This is Deb Wise, Project Officer for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts Competitive Request for Applications Rebid. This is the pre-application webinar. This year will be a full competitive rebid. And the next thing I will go through is the protocol for asking questions today. We will not be using the chat feature today. We will be using the Q&A. Get my slide to advance here. There we go. So today for questions, we do ask that you only enter questions in the Q&A feature only during the designated question slides. So we do need to monitor the Q&A and kind of work through the questions in an orderly fashion today. So we do want to make sure that you are only entering questions when you are asked to enter questions and only questions related to the content that we have covered. Most of the things we are going through the entire application guidance document today during this webinar. So most of your questions should be answered through the content. So we want to make sure that we save that Q&A feature for really specific questions that have not been answered by the provided content. So we do ask that you abide by that. The questions and responses given to questions today during the webinar will not be considered the official responses until they appear in the posted FAQ document about a week after this presentation. We will try to get that FAQ compiled as quickly as possible with the official responses and get that posted to the How to Apply site. We'll talk about the How to Apply site more in subsequent slides. Similar questions, so if folks are kind of asking the same thing, we will compile those questions into one question on the FAQ and answer that one question again in the FAQ document. Again, if a response is already found in the guidance document, the response we will give in the FAQ will only link you to the appropriate page number in the application guidance. It really does fall on the applicants to make sure that you are familiar with and read all of the provided materials for this application process. And that includes both the program regulations document as well as the application guidance document. So let's talk a little bit about the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. This is a grant program that was established by Act 45 of 2007. That act was amended in 2008 and 2010. This grant operates on a 5-year cycle. The current 5-year cycle ends this June, and then this rebid is the start of the new 5-year cycle, which will begin July 1, 2023, and it will end June 30th, 2028. This is a full competitive rebid process this year. So what that means is that everyone has to apply, including all fiscal year 2022, 2023, or what we call current grantees. If they wish to continue with their Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts grant in any capacity, they do need to reapply. There will be no continuation grant process for current fiscal year 2022, 2023 grantees this year. Any new applicants may also apply as part of this full competitive rebid process. Pretty much when we do a competitive rebid year, the purpose is to kind of revisit any changes in demographic changes across the Commonwealth, shifts in populations, shift in need in various areas. It is meant to be a kind of needs assessment driven process where potentially slots could change and shift and change based on those changing demographics and unmet need, etc. So nothing is guaranteed as far as if you are a current grantee. You do need to reapply, and you will need to, again, address all of the questions in the application, just as any of the new applicants would as well. The next slide goes through the application process checklist. This checklist is found within the application guidance document. It is meant to give you a quick overview of things you want to make sure have been accomplished in the application process. So the first thing is you will want to review the regulations document, which is linked there. We will not be sharing these PowerPoint slides. That's usually a question we get. Again, all of this information is included in the application guidance. That guidance is found on the How to Apply website. Kurt or Tony, if one of you could put the link into the chat directly to the PKC How to Apply site, that would be really helpful at this time. So everything that you would be able to find around this RFA process is found at that How to Apply site. So you want to review those regulations. Next, you will want to assure that the applying agency, so the agency that is going to be submitting the application, we also call them the lead agency, meets the provider eligibility requirements. We'll talk more about all of these in subsequent slides as well. The next thing is to assure that the AUN matches the legal entity information of the applying agency. I'll talk more about that. You will need to submit a required letter of intent to apply using the provided template by March 28th at 3 p.m. There are more slides on that as well. And then it is recommended, obviously, that you attend this pre-application webinar or view the posted recording. And then it is required that you complete and submit the application in the eGrant system by April 25th at 3 p.m. If you are applying as a joint applicant, and you'll learn more about what that means, you also need to make sure that your partners complete and sign the partner level letter of commitment, and also complete a partner budget. Those two things, the partner letter of commitment and the budget, need to be uploaded to the application in the eGrant system. And all of these we're going to go through in a little more depth. So again, the Pennsylvania Pre-K Count Statutes, Regulations, and Guidance document can be found on the How to Apply site. There are currently 2 versions posted. For this application process, you will want to review the fiscal year 2023 statutes, regulations, and guidance. That is the policies and regulations that will be effective July 1 of 2023. The current regulatory document for this current fiscal year is also posted there because we're still actively in this this year. So please make sure you are looking at the 2023 regulatory document for this application process. We also have a series of webinars that go over the application, kind of the, sorry, not the application, the regulatory components of the Pre-K Counts programs. There's a series of 8 informational webinars that you could also view to understand the requirements of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. Again, this is on the How to Apply site. We also suggest that you completely review the application guidance document, which will walk you through the whole process. And again, I am the project officer. Once this webinar is over, any questions that you may have regarding the process or program requirements for this application process do need to be sent directly to the project officer through the RA account that is noted here on the screen. And again, all of this is also in the application guidance document. Any questions that do not come to this RA account will not be answered. And this is so that we can be transparent for all applicants and keep a running record on that FAQ of all of the questions asked and the responses given. So please, after the webinar, please send any questions about the application process the regulations, anything in regard to this competitive RFA needs to come through that RA account. I just mentioned the Getting to Know You Pre-K Counts webinars, not required for you to view those prior to application, but highly recommended. Again, they are chunked out in a series of 8 webinars that gives you detailed information on many of the program requirements and expectations. We also have an asynchronous grant writing 101 course available in the Professional Development Registry. Again, this is not required, but highly suggested if you've not written a grant before, especially a state grant. It provides general tips on how to approach grant writing. You do need to have a PD registry login to access that course. And again, the links here are all included in the application guidance. So if you do need to create a login, you can find that link in the application guidance. All right, the next thing on the checklist was to assure eligibility requirements. So we do remain committed to a mixed delivery system. As such, eligible applicants include existing PKC grantees and new applicants. They do need to meet one of the 5 eligible entity categories. So these are the only entities that are eligible to apply for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. School districts. Please note that the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts statute specifically uses the term school districts. Therefore, under this eligible category, intermediate units, charter schools, and other LEAs are not eligible to apply under the school district provider type category. Head Start grantees are also eligible to apply. These are the actual federal Head Start grantees. If you are a service provider under a Head Start grant, you are not necessarily the Head Start grantee. This eligible category includes only the federal Head Start grantees themselves. PDE licensed nursery schools are eligible to apply. These are schools that hold a PDE private academic school license, active license in that system, and that they have a nursery school license attached to that private academic school license. Child care centers and group child care homes that are designated at STAR level 3 or 4 are eligible to apply. The applying agency must have at least one location designated at this level, Keystone Stars 3 or 4, to be able to apply under this provider type. You'll notice that family childcare is excluded here. They are not an eligible provider type for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. Again, this is defined in the Pre-K Counts statute. And then our 5th eligible applicant category is a third-party entity. So a third-party entity can apply for Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funding to administer the lead agency responsibilities for entities that are eligible to provide the classroom services under the other 4 categories listed above. So a third-party entity would not meet any of the other eligible provider types and would not be able to directly serve children under their own entity, but they could funnel the money through or pass through funds to eligible entities and kind of manage the administrative and the fiscal duties of running the Pre-K Counts grant. The next checklist item is to assure that your AUN matches the legal entity of the applying agency. So the required letter of intent requires you to submit a valid AUN that matches the legal name of the applying entity. If that AUN does not match the legal name of the applying entity, the letter of intent will be returned to you. It will not be processed or accepted. The applicant's AUN must also be the AUN that is associated with the provider type under which the agency will be applying for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. This is a change from previous years. We are asking in the required letter of intent that the applying agency selects one provider type that they will be applying for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts grant under. So this usually comes into play with agencies that hold both a private academic license and a STARS DHS childcare license. You must pick one. That will be your provider type that you stick with for Pennsylvania pre-K counts for the 5 years of this grant cycle. The AUN must be associated with that provider type. The reason for this is that we've had several systems changes under the Department of Education over the past 5 years. In addition, we are now allowing Pennsylvania pre-K counts providers to apply for emergency certification, which means we are dealing with another Pennsylvania Department of Education information technology system, the TIM system. So it is imperative that the provider type selected and the AUN are aligned and match. So if you do submit your letter of intent with multiple provider types chosen, we will send that back to you. If you submit a letter of intent where the AUN does not match the provider type, we will send that back to you. When we send it back, we will explain why the letter of intent is not being accepted at this time, and we will give you some guidance on how to resolve the issue. There is a way to verify your AUN. If you go to the EDNA website, and again, this is all provided in the application guidance, you can either search by your agency name, or you can search by an AUN if you have that information. You will want to check to make sure, again, that that AUN aligns with the provider type you're selecting, and also that the administrator listed within the EDNA system matches the CAO that you are putting on your letter of intent. A little bit more about the letter of intent. The letter of intent, again, is due by March 28th by 3 p.m. We do request that you use the provided template. That template is provided on the How to Apply site. Please make sure that that letter of intent is completed. Everything is actually completed and filled in, or it will get returned. This letter of intent is necessary to establish access to the e-grant system where the application will be. It will be your only way to get access to the application for this RFA process. Again, the template is posted on the How to Apply site, and it must be used and it must be fully completed. If there are blanks within that letter of intent, it will get sent back to you for corrections. The letter of intent represents the applicant's intent to apply for Pennsylvania pre-K counts funding and includes the legal name of the eligible agency that will apply, the AUN associated with the applying legal entity, preliminary information about requested funding, program model, provider type, and area to be served. Except for the legal entity, the AUN, and the chosen provider type, any other information submitted in the letter of intent can be modified in the final e-grants application. Programs interested in applying must submit a fully completed mandatory letter of intent by 3 p.m. on March 28th, by March 28th, to the RA account. Late submissions will not be accepted. We had some questions already in the RA account regarding who applies. So the lead agency should be the person or the agency submitting the letter of intent, the lead agency that is actually going to get the grant. If you are a lead agency who is going to propose, multiple partners, the partners do not need to submit a letter of intent as the partnering agency. We do not ask any information in the letter of intent about partnering agencies. That will come later during the application. This is simply for the lead agency who is applying for the funding, who will lead the grant if funding is provided to them, to give them access to the application. Next step. Again, recommended that you are attending this pre-application webinar. So kudos to you who are on today's webinar. For anyone not able to attend at your organizations, we will be recording and we will post that recording probably after March 22nd, it says here. So by next Tuesday. This should be posted to the How to Apply page. The next required element is to actually complete and submit your application in the eGrant system by April 25th at 3 p.m. So here's the process. When Octal receives the completed required letter of intent, information will be added into the eGrant system. Now, again, PDE made some changes. We do need to make sure that the person accessing that eGrants has migrated their eGrants access to the My PDE suite. Our staff will be checking that as part of our processing of the letter of intent. If you're not migrated, we will have someone reach out to you and explain to you what you need to do. It is on you to make sure all of that is completed so that that letter of intent can be processed by the due date, and that application can get opened as soon as possible for you. So once the My PDE suite has been migrated and that person is set up, or multiple people, if multiple people need to access the application, you will get information about the eGrant system itself. So eGrants is one of the systems that's under the My PDE suite. So you have to have access to My PDE suite first, and then you also need to have access to the eGrant system. If you're a brand new user, you will get 2 emails. The first will be from the eGrant system with your login information. The second will be from Octal staff on specific steps of how to set up your grant application. These steps are also outlined in Appendix C in the application guidance document. Existing users will receive 1 email from Octal with steps on setting up your grant application. Again, programs will need to log into My PDE suite to gain access to the eGrant system. There are a series of documents found under eGrants migration to My PDE suite on the How to Apply site. Those are posted there now. So if you know now that you have not migrated yet, you can go there now and walk through that process so that your letter of intent will not get held up once it is submitted. The eGrant system will be the only method for submitting an application. The application process, including notification of award or non-award, will also occur through the eGrant system. And the contracting process for successful grantees will also occur through the eGrant system. Specific instructions on the use of eGrants can be accessed at the link provided for the eGrant system. Again, these links are active within the application guidance document. Again, please refer to the training slides provided in Appendix C of the application guidance for specific directions and consideration for use of the eGrant system. Within Appendix C, I want to point out there is an additional form that is required to be uploaded this year as part of the application process. This is the Workers' Protection Form. Again, this is noted in Appendix C. The actual form is posted on the How to Apply site. This form must be uploaded with your grant application when submitting. All right. The application is separated into sections. So please review the application guidance for specific information on each section of the application. We will be going through each section during today's webinar, but for the system considerations, please make sure that each section is completed and marked complete within the eGrant system. The eGrant system will show a check mark beside the section when it is fully completed. So that's something to check on your home page of your application, that you have all those check marks. If you don't have a check mark for a certain section, then something was not saved and was not completed. Applicants must click the Submit for Peer Review button within the eGrant system before the application is considered submitted for peer review. Applicants are encouraged to fully review the full application prior to finalizing the submission process. This should be done after the applicant is satisfied with the application. Once submitted, the application workflow step will change to submitted for peer review. Please note, this is the only notification the applicant will receive that the submission process has been completed. You will not get a separate email saying your application has been submitted. You won't get a big pop-up that says, congratulations, you submitted your application. The only indication you will get is that that application workflow step will change to submitted for peer review. All applications must be submitted by April 25th by 3 p.m. Please note the time as well as the date. Please do not wait till the last minute. We cannot accept grants that come in after 3 p.m. on April 25th to be fair and transparent and equitable to all applicants. If you have any kind of technological issues, we cannot make concessions. So please try to submit your grant prior to that date and time to alleviate any time crunches with technical issues, etc., that may occur. Again, applications submitted after this date and time will not be accepted or reviewed. For joint applications, this is a lead agency application where you are proposing to have partners. As part of the application process, each partner will also need to complete and sign a fiscal year 23-24 partner letter of commitment. This template is found on the How to Apply site. They must upload this partner letter of commitment to the pre-K status, partnerships, and locations section of the application in eGrants. The completion of the letter of commitment is required. A complete, accurate, and signed letter of commitment must be submitted and uploaded for each proposed partner. The name of the partnering agency on that form is the legal name of the partner agency. This should match information provided in the partnership charts within the status, partnerships, and location section of the application. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in some later slides as well. The name of the applying agency on that form is the legal name of the agency applying for the grant. This should match information provided in the general information section of the application. By signing the letter of commitment, the applying agency is acknowledging that they have reviewed the pre-K counts requirements with the partnering agency. And as the lead agency, they commit to support the partnering agency in meeting the program requirements. By signing the letter of commitment, the partnering agency is acknowledging that they have reviewed the PKC requirements and that they commit to meeting the program requirements. The letter of commitment should be signed by the chief executive officer and/or owner of the partnering agency. It is important for reviewers to understand if the partnering agency is applying under multiple applications. The partnering agency should complete the following based on this guidance. And again, this is all in the letter of commitment, the partner letter of commitment, which is different than the letter of intent to apply. So I want to make that clear. There's a required letter of intent to apply that the lead agency submits. Right now, we are talking about the partner letter of commitment, which needs to be uploaded to the application. We should not be seeing letters of commitment right now coming to the RA account. That is for the application. Our agency, so these are things that are in the partner letter of commitment. You can either check that the partnering agency is seeking to partner with this lead agency only. Check this when the partnering agency will not be applying as their own lead agency, or they will not be submitting any other letters of commitment with any other applying agencies. The next selection you could choose is our agency also will be applying as its own lead agency. Check this when the partnering agency will also be applying on their own as a lead agency. This is allowable. The third option is our agency has submitted an additional letter of intent with the following applying agencies. Check this when the partnering agency will be submitting other letters of commitment with other applying agency. The letter will also ask for those agencies to be listed. It is important for reviewers to understand what the capacity to serve Pennsylvania pre-K count slots is at each partnering agency as well. So we do ask in the partner letter of commitment that the partnering agency completes the following based on this guidance. Our capacity to serve pre-K count slots is, and then you will enter either number of full day slots or number of half day slots. Please note that capacity refers to the total number of PKC eligible children that could be served at the proposed locations of the partnering agency. This is especially important information if the partnering agency is also applying as a lead agency or as a partnering agency in other applications. The true capacity of the partner agency will be considered for funding recommendations when the partner agency is also applying as a lead agency or as a partnering agency in other applications. Okay, so that's a lot of words to basically say, if you are a partnering agency who is also going to be a lead, or you're going to be a partner in multiple applications, we need to know what your actual capacity to serve pre-K count slots is. So if you only have 2 classrooms available and you could serve 40 pre-K count slots, but you are applying as a lead yourself for 40 slots, and you're applying as a partner agency under another application for 40 slots, if you get funded for both, that's 80 slots and you don't have the capacity for that. So this is our attempt to collect the information on true capacity. So when we make funding decisions, we are not giving out slots to agencies that actually don't have the capacity to serve those slots. All right, at this time, we will pause for any questions related to just the slides that we just covered, the application process itself. Pause here for a minute or two to give you time to put your questions in the Q&A. Again, we are only addressing application process questions at this time.
Deb, there was a question that came in before you ended up covering the slides about writing the grant in eGrants, but the question was confirming, will we be writing the grant in eGrants or will it be part of the PD suite migration? So I thought maybe.
So it's both technically. The My PDE suite, you have to have access to My PDE suite to be able to access the eGrants. The application itself will be within the eGrant system, but that is one system that is under the My PDE suite.
Once the letter of intent is submitted, will we immediately receive access to the RFA application?
So it's not necessarily immediate. There is processing that happens. Again, we will give you an email back to tell you that your letter of intent has been accepted. And then we usually give you, I think, a notice of about 5 to 7 business days before you will have access to the application. And that is if you have migrated to My PDE suite. So there's a lot of if-thens. It is definitely not immediate. There will be some time lapse between the time the letter is submitted and us checking and make sure everything is accurate and complete before you will be able to actually access the application itself.
Deb, not sure if this one is relevant for this section or not. How do we edit our information listed in Edna?
So that is dependent upon your provider type. We have a contact listed, Brian Bell, in the application guidance document. If you get your LOI back that says something isn't right as far as the AUN or the administrator in Edna, we will most likely send you initially to Brian Bell. He can change some provider types information, but there are other provider types that he cannot change that will require outreach to another PDE office.
Deb, you mentioned that after today's webinar, all questions should go to the RA account. Does that mean that any questions that were asked elsewhere between the RFA opening earlier this week and today can be answered?
If questions were asked in the RA account prior to this webinar, they were already answered. So I'm not quite sure what that question means.
I think if I'm understanding it right, say somebody reached out to me with a question on Wednesday. I may not have answered because I knew the RFA was open. So
Correct.
can I answer it, or?
No, you may not answer that question. They should be directed to then resend that question to the RA account.
How long does it take to get approved on my PDE suites?
I don't know the exact answer to that question. Again, there's probably a lot of if-thens as far as if things are in place to do that or not. We try to expedite everything as quickly as we can.
On the letter of intent, it asks for one person who will be writing the grant. How do you get access for more than one person to help with the grants?
So once you get set up in the eGrant system, you will have an administrator kind of have some user role access within the eGrant system. They are able to add more people from their agency to the application within eGrants themselves, or we also have staff that can help assist with that.
And this is just a confirmation statement confirming that the letter of intent does not need to include the partner letters of commitment.
That is correct.
If a partner is partnering with a school district in one location and partnering with a third-party entity in another location, how do they complete their letter of commitment?
I'm going to save that question. We'll cover that in the partnerships section.
Okay. Would you check both boxes for commitment letter if you are a lead and a partner?
That will also we'll save for partnerships.
Okay. Do single grantees still need to complete the grant structure Excel template and upload into the grant?
And we'll cover that in that section as well. So these are more about the application and less about the application process. So we're going to hold these until we get to that section because they may be answered in the content that's being provided.
Okay, then looking over the rest, I think we are good to move forward then. It is 9:37.
Thank you. All right, so our next section here, we're going to talk about scope and use of funds. So the funding for this grant is contingent upon approval of the Pennsylvania General Assembly or the passage of the state budget, to put that in different terms. Eligible applicants must complete a needs assessment in the proposed service areas which support the scope of work. The needs assessment does not need to be uploaded to the application. However, it will be used to respond to multiple questions within the application. Apply for the level of funding necessary to support the scope of project activities that are supported by relevant and credible data, are cost effective, and relate to the goals and priorities of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts grants are funded via state dollars, and therefore carryover funds from one fiscal year to another are not permitted. You must spend your full allocation for the services that you agree to by the end of the program year, which is usually it's June 30th of the school year that we're in. For funding priorities, PDE will consider the following funding priorities when determining awards, and these are detailed in the Pre-K Counts statute. Fiscal year 22-23 or current Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts grantees in good standing will be prioritized for funding. They will receive priority points within the application scoring within the Pre-K Counts status partnerships location and section of the application. When we get to that section, we will go into further detail about what that exactly looks like for this application process. We will be looking at county level unmet need. Funding will be distributed based upon county unmet need percentages relative to the amount of expansion funding allocated to the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts state budget line item for fiscal year 23-24. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. County level unmet need can be found in Appendix A and B within the application guidance. You should use these appendices to determine the county level unmet need and proposed number of slots to be funded within a county. So this is an example of Appendix A. It's not all of Appendix A. We do have columns, rows for each county. But this is Appendix A. Again, it is in the application guidance document. This is how we calculate the pre-K counts county unmet need percentage for each county. So what we've done is we've taken from census data, the most recent census data, and from data collected in Octal systems. So in many cases, data that you have provided to us through our various Pelican systems. So we first look at the number of children ages 3 and 4 in a county. That is based on census data. We look at the percent of children aged 3 and 4 living in households under 300% of the federal poverty level. 300% is the cutoff income eligibility requirement for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. That's also from census data. That gives us a targeted population, the number of children ages 3 and 4 that are under 300% of the FPL. So that column 3 is the targeted population for this funding in each county, which has been calculated based on census data. Then we look at services provided to that age group and that income group. So we do collect federal Head Start information from the federal Head Start grantees. We don't collect that, but we are provided that information by our collaboration office. We use information that has been reported to us, not to us, to the feds about Head Start funded slots. So that's where we get that information. We use the HISAP, Head Start Supplemental Assistance Program funded slots that have been captured in the Pelican system. We include school-based pre-K funded slots. You'll notice the most recent data we have for that is actually from 2 years ago, from 21-22 school year. That is from the PIMS PDE data system. We add those 3 together to get the next column, which is the total pre-K funded slots. What you'll notice is missing in this year's Appendix A is any pre-K counts funded slots. So those are zeroed out this year because this is a full competitive rebid. So those are not included as part of Appendix A or as slots being served currently. We also look at total CCW children ages 3 and 4 served in Keystone Stars 3 and 4 Center. This data is accurate as of November 22. This is collected in the CCW Pelican system. This gives us the information we need to calculate an unmet need number per county. So we take the number of children ages 3 and 4 under 300% FPL, that's the third column, and we minus that from the other columns, total pre-K funded slots, E through G, and the CCW numbers, we subtract that. So that is how we get the numbers in this second to last column. Then what we do is we take those numbers and we calculate a percentage by dividing the pre-K counts county unmet need number, so the previous column, divided by the overall state unmet need percentage number. So all of those added together will give us the state unmet need, and then that gives us this percentage number. So that is how all the numbers on Appendix A were calculated based on the data that we have at our fingertips at the state level. This is a micro level look at unmet need. The next appendix is Appendix B. This is an example shot of what you'll see in Appendix B. So in Appendix B, we take that last column of Appendix A, so the county unmet need, percentage by county. And then what we look at is potential funding that we will receive under the pre-K count state line item. So we start at the current allocation of a little over $302 million, And then we add, because we may get some expansion funds, obviously 30 million expansion has been proposed for this program. So we give some options here because we don't know exactly how much money we're going to get. Okay, so we have to give a little bit of a range here. We minus out from that state line item funding the 2% admin cost that it costs us to run this program. That gives us the overall grant money that we will have to spend in each of these columns. Then we divide that by the proposed cost per child, which has increased. It is proposed to be increased to $11,000 this year for a full day slot. So we divide the money we think we're going to have to spend on grants by the cost per child. That gives us an overall number of full day equivalent slots that we think we can fund based on the amount of money that we may receive. We take that number and we look at the county unmet need percentages that were calculated in Appendix A, and that gives us an idea of the number of slots that we would be funding in each county. Okay, so again, there's a lot of if-thans there based on the amount of funding we might receive, based on who applies in what county. So there may be some standard deviation here of having some extra slots to give to some counties, depending on if we don't have enough applicants to reach these numbers, to fill these numbers. So this is a starting point for your application. This does not mean that if you are applying in Adams County, that you can only apply for 175 slots. If you want to apply for 200 slots, that's fine. It doesn't mean you're going to get 200 slots, but it means we're going to use this as our starting point when we do our funding recommendations. So more on funding priorities. We will also be considering zip code level unmet need. So this is done at a little bit more of a micro level once applications are in to avoid saturation of funded slots. So we only look at zip code level unmet need in cases where more than one applicant has proposed slots at locations within similar zip codes. Funding will be distributed based upon zip code unmet need to the highest scoring applicant. Zip codes is a lot of information, so we do not provide that information within the application guidance. It is not relevant to all applications. It will only be relevant, again, in cases where similar zip codes are being applied for. We will also look at school district risk. Risk level will be determined based upon the locations entered in the chart within the pre-K count status, partnerships, and locations section of the application. Applicants proposing to serve children in school districts with higher levels of risk as defined by the percentages of economically disadvantaged children on the Future Ready PA Index will receive priority points within the pre-K count status, partnerships, and locations section of the application. We'll talk a little bit more about that specifically when we get to that section of the application. The overall application is worth 1,195 points. The eGrants application is separated into two areas, the narrative and the budget. Each area is further divided into sections. Each section must be marked complete in eGrants before the application can be submitted. And these are the sections. You'll notice some sections have 0 points and some have points assigned to them. We will be going through each of these sections in subsequent slides. Applicants that are complete and submitted on time by an eligible applicant will be reviewed by a team of readers determined by Ocdel. These readers may or may not be familiar with the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. You know, they're all familiar with it, but their level of familiarity may differ. So do not assume that the reviewer reviewing your application understands your program or understands what you're proposing. You need to write your application so that the reviewer can understand what you are proposing to do. Applications will be awarded ratings based on the applicant's ability to provide concise and detailed responses that address the question being asked to adhere to the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts requirements in your responses, and to adhere to the application instructions. Detailed scoring for each application question is included in the application guidance document. The scoring is noted in red. So wherever you see red within the application guidance document, that indicates a place where points can be awarded or points could be deducted in your application. This is a new feature to our application guidance this year, so please pay close attention to that. Octo will use the application score along with the information on county level unmet need and zip code level unmet need in cases where more than one applicant has proposed slots at locations with similar zip codes to make our funding decisions. Applications will be sorted by the county in which the proposed service locations are located. So if you are an applicant that serves multiple counties, it is likely that you may receive, all of the slots you request in one county, but maybe not all of the slots you proposed in another county. When we have discussions with you about what you're being awarded, your pre-K specialist will be reaching out with those specifics during the negotiation process. The application score includes components which reflect statutory funding requirements related to prioritizing current grantees who are providing programming consistent with pre-K counts regulations and funding service areas with the highest percentage of at-risk children. In addition, the application score reflects the applicant's ability to maintain high-quality pre-kindergarten services that comply with the Pennsylvania pre-K counts regulations. Negotiations with potential applicants are anticipated to begin after the application deadline. We do not necessarily negotiate with everyone. So if you do not get a call, it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes we just need to do follow-up with some of the applicants, and that's what this means. Applicants will be notified of selection or non-selection pending enactment of the 2023-24 budget. That includes program funding. Once contracting is completed, selected grantees may begin their programming. So money will not flow until your contracts are fully executed. All right, we encourage grantees to not start programming until money is flowing. So there will be a delay between the budget being passed and notification of who is being funded. So you need to be aware of that, particularly current grantees. Applications will be notified of award or non-award through the eGrant system and through a letter emailed to the primary contact on the application. Successful awards are initially made with conditions, and a successful agency may need to revise the submitted application based on the availability of funding. Applicants are asked in the application assurances to commit to a timely revision within the eGrant system when awarded, to assure contracts can be in place as soon as possible after awards are announced. It is up to the applicant who is awarded funding to be timely in their revisions within the eGrant system. This is what controls how soon the contract can be executed. The grant period is contingent upon approval of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts appropriation in the state budget and fully executed contracts. Funding will be available for program expenses from July 1 through June 30th. Again, funds will not flow, however, until applicants have fully executed contracts. So if that takes a while and you don't get your contract executed, say until August, you will get paid retroactively from July 1, but you will not get any money until the contracts are fully executed. Now we will pause for any questions related specifically to the funding priority process, the slides we just covered.
Deb, first question. The data within the appendix does not seem to have correct number of pre-kindergarten slots for our county. For example, the federal preschool Head Start funded slots is not correct, nor is the HISAP funded slots, although these numbers were used to calculate unmet need. I didn't know if you would
Those
like to
numbers
speak about
were
that.
what we currently have in our systems. that has been reported to us. So they are the best available data that we have at the state level. If they are not correct, I don't think we can change them at this point. This is why data reporting is so important, to have accurate data reported. Again, we use the systems that we have in place, and that is how those appendices were created. There are opportunities within the application itself to write about your needs assessments and your rationale for proposing services in certain areas. If you know there is an inaccuracy in Appendix A or B, I would definitely note that inaccuracy with relevant and accurate data sources in those questions within the application itself.
Referring to Appendix A, column 6, when you say school-based pre-K slots, does that mean locally funded slots or PA pre-K count slots?
Does not mean PA pre-K count slots. It means the slots that are reported by school districts in the PIM system. So it could include a small handful of pre-K count slots if the school districts are reporting those, if they are the lead agency. But for the most part, it is other funding sources that school districts use for their own school-based pre-K programs, such as the Ready to Learn grant. Some school districts just fund pre-K through their regular school funds. That's what we're attempting to capture there. And again, it is based on how the school districts report in the PIMS system.
If you are taking the unmet need from Appendix A to determine projected slots in Appendix B, that unmet need included current slots for distribution. So are those numbers in Appendix B to be added to current slot distribution, or is that a guess of total slots distributed for a new grant?
I don't understand the question.
We can come back to that one.
Pre-K counts is not included in either Appendix A or Appendix B. There are no current pre-K count slots included in Appendix A or Appendix B.
All right. Deb, did you say that zip code level unmet need has not been provided as part of this application? And if not, are we able to ask through the RA account where to find that info?
That is not publicly available data other than in the open data portal, but it's not, someone would have to analyze that at your level. Again, that's going to be an internal part of how we do funding recommendations if it's necessary, which is why we're not producing that publicly.
Deb,
it may not be necessary for everyone.
Deb, can you remind us where we can find Appendix A?
It's all in the application guidance. That is on the How to Apply site.
It seems that projected numbers in our counties are dramatically lower than current slots awarded. Would you suggest just showing full enrollment and wait list to try to tell the story of need?
Again, there are multiple opportunities within the application itself to talk about your needs assessment at your local level and to provide your rationale for why you're proposing slots in certain areas or the number of slots that you're proposing to fund. So yes, all of that information should be included in the responses to those particular questions. That will all be considered in our funding recommendations as well. It does need to be current and relevant data that can, be somewhat verified at our level. Again, we are using our best available data at the macro level based on what is reported into our state data systems.
If a Head Start grantee has submitted a request for reduction or a change in scope, how can we communicate that information with the state? The number of children below 100% may have shifted to children below 300%.
I don't understand the question. or the relevance, I guess, is if it's trying to
Yeah.
change Appendix A or Appendix B because the numbers aren't being reported right. If that information is pertinent to your pre-K counts application, again, you have opportunities to write about that within some of the questions within the application. We will not be changing Appendix A and Appendix B at this point.
So Deb, it is 9:59, and I think that covers the questions for this section.
Great, moving on. So we are now moving into the actual application components and the scoring for each of these sections. The first section in the eGrants application is the general information section. There are no points awarded for this section. There are, I think, some points that can be deducted based on alignment with other parts of the application. So we'll point those out as we go through these slides. Failure to complete the general information section completely and accurately could result in disqualification of the proposal. Please take special care in providing information that aligns with the legal name of the applying entity. So we do ask for that legal name. This should be the name and address that the agency uses on its federal W-9 form. It is used when registering for the agency's federal ID. You should be consulting with the person who handles your tax, legal, or accounting matters for the agency to determine the legal name, the address, and the federal ID number. The correct legal name and address must be provided where requested to process an application. Failure to do so will result in significant delays in providing funding. The application also asks for a doing business as name if it is different from the legal name. So there is opportunity to list another name if that's who you do business under, but we need the legal name to be included that matches the tax ID. We do ask for a vendor number, also called the SAP number. This supplied vendor number must align with the legal name and address provided in the application. All agencies applying for Pennsylvania pre-K counts must be pre-registered. The Central Vendor Management Unit is a storage database. The comptroller uses this account to store direct deposit information. If you have any questions about vendor numbers, see page 10 of the application guidance or the Pennsylvania pre-K counts how to apply website. The MPI number is asked for. The supplied MPI number must align with the legal name and address provided in the application. All applicants will need an MPI number if the application is successful, okay? The number is requested as part of the application process to ensure timely contracting for successful applications. These numbers are used by the Department of Human Services to identify legal entities and service locations that participate in any of its programs. If you have questions about vendor numbers, sorry, this is MPI numbers. If you have questions about MPI numbers, see page 11 of the application guidance. Some legal entities may not be part of the Department of Human Services at this time. You may not have an MPI number. Okay, so this is covered in page 11. If you don't know if you have an MPI number or not, there is a number to call, the ELN help desk. That is provided on page 11 of the application guidance. Please call them and check because you may have one and not know it. If you call them and they say you do not have one, only in that case may you enter zeros in the application for the MPI number. This will most often relate to school districts applying for the first time for Pennsylvania pre-K counts and maybe some Head Start agencies. We also ask for the tax ID number or the federal ID number. Again, this is the number the agency uses on its W-9 form. Please consult with your person that handles taxes, legal, or accounting matters for your agency to determine this number. The number should align with the legal name and address. The correct number must be provided when requested to process an application. Again, failure to do so will result in significant delays in funding approved applicants. Sometimes you will hear this number referred to as the FEIN number. We need the address of the applying agency. Please fully complete the chart within the application with street address, city, state, zip code, and county of the applying agency. The address provided should align with that of the legal entity. Applicant provider type, we talked a little bit about this already. There are 5 eligible applicant provider types. School districts, again, we already noted that this does not include other LEAs. Only school districts are eligible to apply under pre-K count statute under this provider type. Head Start grantees, again, the federal Head Start holder of the federal Head Start grantee grant. Pennsylvania Department of Education, private academic school, having an active private academic school license with nursery school assigned are eligible applicants. DHS licensed childcare centers and group childcare homes that are designated as star 3 or 4. Again, the applying agency must have at least one location designated at 3 or 4 level to apply under this provider type. Again, family childcare providers are not included in statute, so they are not included as an eligible Pennsylvania pre-K counts provider type. And then a third-party entity may apply if they do not meet any of those 4 other applicant types. They may not serve children themselves if they do not meet one of those other provider types, but they can apply for the grant funds to serve as a lead agency to administer lead agency responsibilities for partnering entities who do meet one of the 4 provider types above. So that is who is eligible to apply for the grant. Okay. Later, we're going to talk about provider locations. The types are similar, but I want to make a clear distinction here between when you're applying, you need to meet the applicant provider type in at least one of your sites. All right. And then when we talk about locations, we're going to kind of talk about this again, but they are distinct. Applicants must choose one applicant provider type. They need to do that in the required letter of intent. This is a change from previous years. Even in cases where the applying agency may meet more than one provider type, we need you to select one that will be maintained as your Pennsylvania pre-K counts provider type for the duration of this grant. When choosing which provider type to select, applicants meeting multiple types should consider the extent to which maintenance of the chosen provider type will affect eligibility to offer Pennsylvania pre-K counts services. So again, you are going to assure that you will maintain this selected provider type for the duration of the grant period. The type chosen should align with the information originally provided within the submitted letter of intent to apply. That's super important this year. You cannot change your applicant type that you submitted in your approved letter of intent. You are also asked to choose whether you will be a single or a joint grantee. Single grantees are lead agencies responsible for providing the pre-K counts program slots at their service locations. So you're the applying agency, you're getting the slots, you are serving Pennsylvania pre-K counts children in your own legal locations. Joint grantees are defined as lead agencies with partners. Partnerships are defined as a provider receiving a pass-through grant from a grantee and being responsible for providing the slots at their service locations under this grant. So joint grantees can look 2 different ways. They can be a lead agency who doesn't serve any slots themselves, passes funds through to one or multiple partners to serve the slots at the partner locations. That's one way a joint grantee could look. The other way is that the lead agency serves some pre-K count slots under their own lead agency locations if they are an eligible provider type, and they also pass money through to partnering agencies to serve slots as well. Okay. Within the general information section, we ask for a summary of your grant request. This section presents a chart to be completed with the following information. If you've completed e-grants before, This section will look a little bit different this year. We are doing a chart this year that will calculate your cost, your funding request. So you will enter into the chart the number of full day slots you are requesting. Full day slots refers to a minimum of 5 hours per day of instructional services or activities. And you will also enter the number of half day slots requested. Include the total number of half day slots being requested. Half day refers to a minimum of 2.5 hours per day of instructional services or activities. Please refer to page 53 of the Pre-K Counts regulatory document for a deeper description of what we mean by instructional time. That is very important. Here we see some red. We know that red means that you could get points or you could lose points. We know we're not getting any points for this section, so this is an indication of when we might deduct some points. So we may deduct up to 5 points in the Pre-K Count status, partnerships, and locations section of the application if the slots requested here do not match the slot information provided within your location charts. Okay, so please take care to make sure that the information you're providing in each section of your application align to the other sections. Otherwise, you will lose points. The grant amount requested will be calculated within the chart based upon the number of full day and the number of half day slots you entered within the chart. This should reflect the amount of funding requested to implement the proposed model. Okay, because it's being calculated, there should be no cents involved, okay, whole numbers. Applicants should complete this fiscal year application based on the projected funding of $11,000 per child for full day slots and $5,500 per child for half day slots. Okay, again, here's some deductions that could occur if there's not alignment between what's calculated here and the budget section of the application. So you could lose up to 10 points if what's calculated here does not match the budget section of the application. Okay, we need to make sure the grant amount requested here matches what is in your budget. We may also deduct up to 10 points from the budget section if the grant amount requested or the budget totals are not divisible by the cost per child. This shouldn't be an issue in this section because it's calculated for you. But again, you want to take care to make sure that these numbers align to your budget totals and are divisible by the cost per child, $11,000 for full day and $5,500 per child for half day. There is a question here regarding acceptance of a lesser cost per child. Because the $11,000 for full day is what is proposed, we don't know if we're going to actually get that. So we have this question in here, which basically asks that if you will be asked to complete a question regarding acceptance of a lesser cost per child if the governor's proposed expansion to increase the cost per child is not approved by the General Assembly. If the applicant selects no here, meaning you will not accept a lesser cost per child, and we don't get the funds to increase the cost per child, selecting a no will exclude your application from being considered for funding. So please take care. Obviously, we hope everyone just answers yes to this question so we can review your application. But do not assume that we're going to get the increase. We have to wait and see for when the budget passes. So please take care when answering yes or no to this question. All right, questions about the general information section.
Deb, for a private academic nursery school, if everything is going well with their program, but they are currently in the process of renewal and haven't had that finalized yet, is documentation of evidence of that current status acceptable for lead agency eligibility?
My understanding of the private academic school system is even if your license is up for renewal, you currently hold an active license. As long as the EDNA system says that that is an open private academic school license, we will accept that. It does need to be the legal name and entity, and everything needs to match for what is on the currently active private academic school license.
And the only other question may actually be more relevant in the next section you're about to go into. And if that's the case, seeing that it's about 10:15, we can just go ahead and do that. Can a group childcare facility partner with another group childcare facility?
If they are both star 3 and 4 group childcare, yes.
And at that time, at this time, Deb, those are the only questions that have come in for this section.
Great. Next section is a quickie. This is contact information. There are no points awarded for this section, but failure to complete the contact information section will result in the disqualification of the proposal. So please make sure this is completed fully. The lead agency contact information is asked for. This contact information is requested for an overall contact person for the application. We also asked for an authorized budget contact for issues and questions about the budget. And we asked for the authorized person to sign the contracts. So for each of these bolded areas, you will be submitting contact information within the eGrant system in charts. Please complete all requested information for each contact type. If individuals function in more than one role, you will need to repeat the information for each of these types. Click on the Add button at the end of each row to add additional lines. Please take special care in saving this information in the charts. You need to scroll to the bottom of the page and click the blue Save button. eGrants will not automatically save this information after it is entered. The user must click on the blue Save button or this information will be lost. This is something you're going to want to check to make sure that the information is showing before you submit your application, okay? Because sometimes the charts get tricky. And if you didn't hit save, you think you entered something, but then it doesn't show up. All right, we want to avoid that. So please double check yourselves before final submission. The person listed as the authorized individual to sign contract documents must be authorized with formal approval using the resolution e-signature. That's a link. Again, this is information that's included in the application guidance. E-signature is not necessarily required to submit your application, but it is necessary for most applicant types. Some kind of signature authority, whether it is e-signature or a print and sign option, if funding is awarded. So you can go through the process now to get e-signature. Again, this information is provided within the application guidance of how to do that, but it is not necessary for the to be done by the time the application is due. Any questions about contact information section?
Deb, at 10:17, there are no questions about contact information.
Great. All right, moving on to the next section. This is a biggie. It's worth 275 points. This is a section we'll ask about current and or historical Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts grantee status. In addition, applicants will be asked to provide a rationale for applying as either a single applicant or as a joint applicant. And the applicants will complete charts detailing their partnership relationships if they have them, as well as detailing all locations where Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts services are being proposed. The proposed service locations provided by the applicant within this section will define the applicant's Pre-K Counts service area. So the first question, the way the guidance is set up here, this is all right from the application guidance document, is we literally give you the question the application is going to ask, and then we give you some information about how to respond to that question and what we're looking for, and then we give the scoring. So you'll see this throughout the application guidance. We're going to walk through everything here today during the webinar, but please have that application guidance open when you are completing the application. All the information you need should be available within that application guidance. So the first question you're going to see is a three-parter. There's an A, B, and a C. Question 1A, are you currently a pre-K counts lead agency? So current means you hit yes. This is a yes/no response. Click yes if the applying agency has a signed pre-K counts contract with the Commonwealth for fiscal year 22-23. If you don't have a signed contract with the Commonwealth for 22-23, you will select no. Okay. The next question will ask if you are currently a Pennsylvania pre-K counts partner agency. You will select yes if the applying agency receives pass-through funding to offer Pennsylvania pre-K counts services from a lead agency in fiscal year 22-23. Okay. If you do not receive pass-through funding for pre-K counts services from a lead agency currently in this current fiscal year, you will select no. Okay. It is allowable and could happen that an applicant is selecting yes for both of these. If you are a lead agency and you hold a pre-K counts grant on your own, and if you are currently a partner agency as well, you could be selecting yes for both of these. Okay, so read those carefully, make sure you're checking the right response here. The third part of this, 1C, what was or were the pre-K counts agency's fiscal year 22-23 program review instrument scores? For agencies with multiple program review instruments, due to being lead and partners, please enter all your current PRI scores. This response will be verified using the PRI score entered within the Pelican system. If you are not a fiscal year 22-23 grantee, your response should be not a fiscal year 22-23 PKC grantee. Okay. The reviewers will take all three of these responses from 1A, 1B, and 1C to determine one score for Pennsylvania pre-K counts grantee status. Up to 50 points will be awarded to approved providers that received grant funds in the immediately preceding school year and are based on the extent to which the provider has met program standards and has demonstrated satisfactory implementation of the program based on the program review instrument scores. There is more information on detailed scoring on page 14 of the application guidance document. So there's more information about how to get that 50 points in the application guidance. We don't have time today to go through everything in that document. So we're just giving you the highest level available for the scoring during today's webinar, but to get more information, page 14 of the application guidance document for this one. The next question is about consecutive years of Pennsylvania pre-K counts service. Question 2 asks you to select each program year that a Pennsylvania pre-K counts grant was held by the applicant, and then indicate whether the grant was held as a lead, a partner, or both. The applicant should select each year the applying agency received pre-K counts funding as a lead or partner agency. The applicant should then select for each selected year whether they were a lead, a partner, or both. Based on the applicant responses and verification in the Pelican system, the highest number of consecutive years of providing pre-K counts services will be calculated and priority points awarded accordingly. Please note that consecutive means unbroken years of service. Okay. Applicants can receive up to 75 points based on maintenance of Pennsylvania pre-K counts funding over the years. You can find more information on detailed scoring for this question on page 14 of the application guidance. And I do have an example on the next slide to reiterate what we mean by consecutive years. So here's an example. If a lead agency received a pre-K counts grant in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and that should say 2016. Yeah, 5 consecutive years. So that's a typo there. It should say 2016 for that last one. So for 5 consecutive years in a row, but for some reason they didn't reapply during rebid in 2018, or they didn't win an award that year. They did not receive a grant in 2018, right? But then in 2020, they received an expansion grant, and they maintained that expansion grant for 3 more years, okay? So in this example, although they served pre-K counts for 8 years in this example, only 5 of those were consecutive. That was the highest number of consecutive years. So the consecutive years here that should be entered in the application should be 5, okay? Because there was a break in service, okay? You're only getting points here for consecutive years of service. So if there was a break in the years, you need to kind of look at that when you're determining your consecutive years. And we will verify what is entered in the application for this question. The next question in this section is the rationale for your applicant type. Remember, your applicant type you selected in the general information section as either a single grantee or a joint grantee applicant. Here we are asking you to describe the rationale for applying as either a single applicant without partners or as a joint applicant with partners. The response should align to the selection made under the applicant type in the general information section of this application. Applicants should review Regulation 405.32 partnerships to understand how partnerships are defined under the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts Regulation and Guidance. Partnerships are specifically defined for Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts as a provider receiving pass-through grants from the grantee and being responsible for providing the PKC program slots at their service locations under this grant. For single applicants, your question is to describe the decision-making process which led to applying as a single applicant. When relevant and available, use data to explain this decision. Describe how the requirements of implementing the Pre-K Counts program will be managed by the applying agency. Also describe how Regulation 405.31, coordination and collaboration with agencies providing services to young children, which states that approved providers shall coordinate and collaborate with other program sites in their county on activities such as professional development, family outreach, and child enrollment strategies to the extent practicable to the advantage of all programs and the creation of greater efficiencies will be met. So if you're applying as a single grantee, you need to explain that decision. And you also need to talk about, as a single grantee, how are you still going to coordinate with other providers in your area? For joint applicants, again, a lead agency with partners, you're answering this part of the question. Describe the decision-making process which led to applying as a joint applicant. When relevant and available, use data to explain this decision. Describe how communication occurred with the partners for this application, how ongoing communication with partners will occur, how partners were selected, and what services and supports the applying agency, the lead agency, will provide to the partners with direct connections made to the pass-through funding being provided to the partners. So here you need to describe that partnership relationship, what the lead is going to give to the partners, how the partners were selected. All the things that are asked in this question should be addressed in the response. Here is the scoring. Reviewers will first verify that the response aligns with the selected provider type, single or joint, selected within the general information section. 5 points will be deducted if the response does not align with the selected applicant type. For single applicants, up to 25 points may be awarded. To receive the full 25 points, responses must provide details that directly address the decision-making process for applying as a single applicant. Responses at this scoring level must include data that is relevant to the decision and describe in detail how the agency will fully manage the implementation of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program, including but not limited to addressing managing child eligibility and enrollments, implementing lead teacher induction plans and evaluations, management of Pelican data reporting, and management of fiscal reporting. Responses at this level must also include details on how the coordination and collaboration regulation will be met. You can find more information on detailed scoring for this part of the question for single applicants on page 16 of the application guidance. Scoring for responses of joint applicants. Again, 25 points may be awarded. To receive full points as a joint applicant, responses must include details that directly address the decision-making process for applying as a joint applicant. Responses at this scoring level must include data that is relevant to the decision and describe in detail how communication occurred with partners for the application, how ongoing communication with partners will occur, how partners were selected, and what services supports the applying agency will provide the partners with direct connections made to the pass-through funding being provided to the partners. Again, you can find more information on detailed scoring for this part of the question on page 16 of the application guidance. Question 4 is the partnerships chart. Only joint applicants will be completing these charts. So again, if you're a single applicant, you're not doing this section, only joint applicants. If you are a joint applicant applying with partners, you must complete these charts. These charts will list your partners and ask for requested information. Here is where you will upload your letter of commitment from your partners for each proposed partner agency. There will be an upload capability at the bottom of the section in eGrants for your uploads. Again, single applicants not requesting partnerships should not complete the partnerships charts. For joint grantees, please complete charts for all partners that you are proposing to provide funds to for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts classrooms as part of your grant. Joint applications without completed partnership charts will not be reviewed. Please click on the Add button at the end of each row to add additional lines. Please take special care in saving the information in the charts by scrolling to the bottom of the page and clicking the blue Save arrow. Again, eGrants will not automatically save this information after it is entered. You must click the blue Save button or this information will be lost. Because this section is so important, we do provide an Excel template of this information as well on the How to Apply site. You can also complete this Excel template and upload it to assure that if something happens with your eGrants charts, we still have the information we need to be able to score your grant. So this is a little just safety protocol that we have in place. We suggest that you do both, that you enter this information into the charts. You must enter it into the charts in the eGrants, but you also have the option to upload it on this Excel template as a backup in case something happens with the charts. This information is required, so please assure that you have either completed the eGrants table correctly or uploaded a completed Excel template within this section of the application. Again, partnerships are defined as a provider receiving a pass-through grant from the grantee and being responsible for providing the program slots at their service location under this grant. For each chart, you will be providing the partner MPI number, which should be 7 or 9 digits, as an identifier. All partners will need an MPI number as part of this application process. Again, what I said before about calling and checking, and if they tell you you don't have one, that's the only reason you can enter zeros. Okay, otherwise you're entering that 7 or 9 digit MPI of the partnering agency. In addition to the MPI number, the following information for each partnering agency is also required: the federal tax ID of the partnering agency, the legal name of the partnering agency, the school district where the partnering agency is located, the provider type, the address, the pass-through grant amounts, and the number of full day and the number of half-day slots the partnering agency is requesting to serve. In addition to completing the partnerships chart, a joint applicant must include a signed and completed partner letter of commitment from each partnering agency. The template is available at the Pre-K Counts How to Apply site and must be uploaded within the eGrant system to complete a joint application. Applicants can receive up to 50 points based on the number of partners proposed. To receive full points for the number of proposed partners, an accurate and completed and uploaded partner letter of commitment is required for the proposed partner to be counted. Applicants can find more information on detailed scoring around partnerships on page 19 of the application guidance. Question 5 is about the service locations. All applicants, whether you're single or joint, are asked to complete location charts in eGrants to identify the locations where pre-K count slots will be served. The applicant's service area for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program will be defined by the proposed locations provided within the location charts. Both joint and single grantees should complete these charts. Charts should be completed for all locations that you are proposing to enroll children for Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts. A location is defined as any physical address where a Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts classroom will be located. Applications without a completed locations chart will not be reviewed. Again, this is all the information about making sure you're adding and saving during the chart entry. And again, we have an Excel template provided to enter this information in the event you are having issues with the eGrants tables. This information is required, so please assure that you have either completed the eGrants table correctly and or uploaded a completed Excel template within this section of the application. For locations, you will need to provide a location MPI number. This is either the lead or the partnering agency's 7 or 9 digits with a 4-digit extender. Okay, so we're looking for 11 to 13 digits here for the location MPIs. All locations will need an MPI number as part of the application process. Each location base MPI, 7 or 9 digits, must match either the lead agency MPI or the partner MPI number. In addition to the MPI, we ask for the following information for each location: the federal tax ID number, the legal name of the location, the provider type. So for locations, this is where children will be served. We do need service locations to meet an eligible provider type. So for current locations, please enter the location's current eligibility provider type status. For new locations, please enter the location's anticipated status as of December 1, 2023. For fiscal year 23-24, all childcare centers and group homes must be star 3 level or higher and maintain this star designation throughout the life of their Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. So for the location, the service locations, we do provide a little bit of time to get new locations started up and running. You technically should not be serving Pre-K Counts children in those locations until they are meeting one of the eligible provider types that we talked about: school district, Head Start, private licensed nursery, or star 3 or 4 childcare or group home. You will enter the star level if it is a childcare, if that's applicable to the location type. You will enter the school district where the location is located. Please do not use acronyms. Please spell out the full names of school districts. Sometimes we get, just the letters, and we have 500 school districts in Pennsylvania. So it's helpful if you actually spell out the names of the school districts. You will also enter the school districts that that location could potentially serve. You will enter the number of full day and the number of half day slots requested to be served at that location. The total of full day and half day slots entered here must match the grantee's total requested full day and half day slots from the general information section of the application. Up to 5 points will be deducted in this section if the slots requested in the general information section do not match the slot information provided within the location charts. We also ask for the address of the locations. The applicant's proposed location information will be reviewed at the zip code level to assure proposed locations will not impact already available Head Start or local pre-kindergarten enrollments. Local communities are the best determinant of need. Therefore, applicants should be intentional about the locations where they are proposing to serve Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts children to assure that there is not an oversaturation of pre-kindergarten services in one area while other areas are being left unserved. Applicants should not propose locations which would saturate pre-kindergarten services in one area while neglecting areas in which little or no pre-kindergarten services exist. Overall, proposed locations and the rationale for service need should demonstrate commitment to collaborate rather than compete with other pre-kindergarten providers within their service area. The information entered in the location chart will be used to determine an overall risk score using the criteria detailed below. School district level risk will be calculated using the most recent district fast fact information. This is from the Future Ready PA Index and will be based upon where the proposed locations are located. The risk calculation will be based upon the percentage of economically disadvantaged students. So that is a particular data component in the Future Ready Index. Up to 75 points will be awarded based on school district risk level. The separate risk level scores will be averaged if proposing locations in multiple school districts. You can find more information on risk level scoring on page 20 to 21 of the application guidance document. All right, that concludes that section of the application. I know we had some follow-up questions in this area, so let's jump into those questions now.
All right. If a partner is partnering with a school district in one location and partnering with a third-party entity in another location, how do they complete their letter of commitment?
They will be completing 2 letters of commitment, one for each of those lead agencies. And within that letter of commitment, they would check that they are applying under multiple partners, and you would list those lead agencies on both. You'd have to complete that information on both of those letters of commitment.
Would you check both boxes for commitment letter if you're a lead and a partner? Our agency also will be applying as its own lead agency. Our agency has submitted an additional letter of intent with the following applying agencies, but that is not provided there.
Yes, so if you are applying as a lead on your own and you are applying in another lead agency's grant as a partner, yes, on that partner letter of commitment that you're submitting with the lead agency, you would select that you are applying as your own lead and that you are applying as a partner under another one. You do not need to submit a letter of commitment under your own lead agency application. You in that case, you only submit one letter of commitment with the lead agency that you're partnering with, but you would check within that letter of commitment that you are applying as your own lead and in this partnership that the letter of commitment's covering.
Do single grantees still need to complete the grant structure Excel template and upload into the grant?
You will need to complete the locations portion of that template, but not the partnerships. I think they are separate tabs on that document, so be careful about tabs. The first tab, I believe, is partnerships. You would not need to complete that tab, but you would need to complete the locations tab if you're having issues with the charts. If you're fine with your charts and you know that they're fine, you don't need to do the Excel template at all. That's a backup for you as the applicant.
If awarded a grant, are we able to change the proposed location to a different area, given that this is possibly scored by zip code level?
We do not like that to occur. You should be applying for this application where you think you are going to be serving students. Same with partnerships and things like that. This will become a legally binding document once it's your contract. The application is part of your contract. So you are somewhat legally bound to what you are putting in this document, which is why we have you update things before we finalize the contract. In some cases, depending on the circumstances, we have allowed changes, but we do not like to do that. We do frown upon that because you are being scored based on what you're putting in this application.
If we want to allocate some of our pre-K count slots to another one of our sites in a subsequent year, assuming that that location becomes star 3 or 4, will there be an option to do that later, or should we list that site now when defining our service area, even if it's not currently star 3 or 4?
We do not have any expectation of expansion funds. So you are writing for a 5-year grant right now. We may get expansion funds, but none of us have a crystal ball, so we don't know that we will be getting expansion funds. So you can put on a location that you maybe want to serve students at in subsequent years. The problem with that is if they're not currently at the eligibility type for this fiscal year, you're going to have to serve those slots somewhere. So you can't apply for slots that you're not going to serve until a subsequent fiscal year. This is, even though it's a 5-year grant, it's contracted year to year. So you are committing to serving the slots this coming school year that you are applying for. You're getting funding to serve those slots this coming school year. So if it's a location that's not going to be eligible to serve slots until 2 or 3 years down the road, you really can't apply for that location in this application. You'll have to find a intermediary location for those slots and then move them later, or pray that we get expansion in subsequent years to add that location in later.
If an agency is currently a pre-K counts lead agency, but would like to partner with a newly established third-party entity, would they lose the priority points since the third-party entity would be new to pre-K counts? And I think this speaks to length of time in the grant.
If the current lead agency is not applying this year as a lead agency, the new lead agency would not get the current grantee points because they are the applying agency, if that's what's being asked.
Mm-hmm. Does a lead agency need to include partner PRI scores for any partners that are not included in this pre-K counts application?
You are only including PRI scores of the lead agency who's applying. So you're only, if you were a lead, you're supplying your lead agency PRI score, or if you were a partner in another grant, you're supplying your partner, you as a partner PRI score. You are not supplying all of the PRI scores of all of your partners. That is not what's being asked in the question.
Currently in e-grants, some individuals are noticing that the drop-down menu where they can select the year back in which they've been involved in the grant only goes to 2012. How can they approach that if they've been involved longer than 2012?
We will check that. We'll have to check that in our e-grant system. We can update that if that is not functioning appropriately. So we will check that. Thank you for pointing that out.
In question 5, does listing the districts to be served limit the future enrollments? If a child from a district not listed applies, is it still okay to enroll them?
That will not, what you respond to in the application for that portion is not going to impact what you do later down the road as far as enrollments. This is just a kind of getting an idea of where you may be drawing your students from. So no, it won't impact who you can enroll in down the road.
When opening a new center, once we obtain a provisional license, that is valid for 6 months before we get a permanent license and can obtain Star 4 status. If we open a new center, is this grace period allowed if it is planning to serve only pre-K count students?
So we try to work with our CERT office. We're all under the same Octal umbrella. When we have new locations opening with a pre-K counts grant, we try to facilitate that as much as we can to expedite that. Bottom line for pre-K counts is if the provider location is not meeting eligible provider status, they should not be serving pre-K counts children until they have that eligible provider status, which means that if you don't have Star 3 or 4, and again, we use December 1st because that's kind of, you have to meet 180 days for pre-K counts. So if you're not up and running by December 1st, it's really going to be hard for you to meet 180 days. What typically happens is we look at that startup And if you're not up and running, we may have to take some funding back, until once you get up and running. But what we look at is the expenses that you've incurred to get that location up and running. So there is some flexibility there, but we do want new locations to kind of get open and up and running, especially in underserved areas. So we do have some flexibility there. But if you don't meet your 180 days, we will need to take some funding back for the initial year.
In addition to the partner letter of commitment, does a partnership agreement need to be uploaded with the application?
No, you do not need to upload your partnership agreement. That is not asked for as part of the application. If you are funded, it will be one of the plans you will need to submit to your preschool specialist for review and approval.
If a school district is a single entity and they are still assessing the populations at each school to determine need for space, can we change the location if needed after receiving the grant?
So again, I think that was kind of the same question as was asked before. You are beholden to what you're putting in your contract to an extent. We do have those conversations with contracted providers that are awarded. We will determine kind of based on that conversation, whether that is a legitimate move of slots or not after, the contracting occurs. So it's, again, we can be flexible, but it needs to be data driven and make sense. Because again, you are getting points in the application based on the information that you're putting in the application. So we want that information to be as close as possible to what's actually going to occur.
Seeing as partners are responsible for fulfilling their own responsibilities, especially if it's with more than one lead agency, would the lead agency be responsible if a partner overextends themselves?
Yes. The lead agency is entering into a formal legally binding partnership agreement with their partners. That partnership agreement will be reviewed and approved. It should include, all of the circumstances of what's expected, who's providing what the monitoring will be between the lead agency and the partnering agency. And ultimately, the lead is responsible for their partner agencies.
If we complete the Excel spreadsheets, do we also need to complete the chart in the e-grants page?
You should first attempt to complete the chart. Okay. The Excel template is not your first go-to. The chart is your first go-to. If you have issues with the chart or you're not feeling comfortable with the chart because you've entered it and it doesn't seem to be working or saving, the Excel is your backup. So we are going to be looking for the chart first and foremost, and quite frankly, will be the easiest for the reviewers who are going to have a lot to do. So we don't want the reviewers to have to open a bunch of Excels. We have put that there as a backup if you are having technical issues with the e-grants charts.
If you are a lead agency and are able to take on a new partner that used to hold a pre-K counts grant in years past, is it recommended that that agency would apply twice as a lead again and as now a partner, or just as a partner under a lead agency?
That is completely up to that agency. Both are acceptable. And again, we're not going to give any inclination one way or the other. That is completely up to that agency, whether they want to apply as a lead and a partner, or if they just wanted to trust that that new lead is going to get funded and be a partner. That is completely up to that agency.
In a partnership, can one of the partners be a corporate entity providing administrative support while the other be a provider location?
So the corporation providing the administrative stuff would have to be the lead in that scenario as a third-party entity, and they could not serve students if they're not meeting one of the other eligible provider types.
If someone is a lead agency with a partner Are they listing the PRI score for the lead agency and the partner, or just the lead agency?
They are only listing PRI scores for the applying entity. If that applying entity was a lead, you're entering the lead PRI. If the applying entity was also a partner, they're entering their partner PRI. Not the partners PRIs. It's just about who's applying for that question.
And I'm looking at potentially one last question. Just give me a moment to work through this to see if it is for now. So assuming we have a place to serve all of our slots this year, should we list an additional site with 0 slots allocated to it now in the location chart in case we decide to change where we serve our PKC in the future? So this is really speaking to if we need to change a location in the future, do we need to show that now in the application, or is there some other way to handle that?
So you would apply for this application like you have no slots now. So wherever you want to serve students in fiscal year 22-23 is what you're putting into this application. I don't really know how better to answer that.
And at
You're
10,
only going to be answering this application based on school year 22-23, if that's helpful. We're not writing a 5-year grant in this application. We're only writing a 1-year grant. We're writing for school year 22-23.
and at 10:55, Deb, that is all the questions for this section.
Awesome. All right, we'll go on to the next section, which is rationale for services. This section is worth 140 points. This section asks applicants to provide a historical context of the applying agency in providing high quality pre-kindergarten services. It also asks about the process for conducting a community needs assessment and how the results of such assessment inform the application. In addition, applicants are asked to provide information on how they will prioritize enrollments into the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program if awarded funding. The first question discusses the program history of serving pre-kindergarten children with high quality programming for the applying agency and any proposed partner agencies. So here you are including information on proposed partner agencies if you are a joint grantee. The response should address the following. Discuss any programming provided by the applying agency or its partner agencies for preschool, pre-kindergarten age children, ages 3 through 5. Provide information on when these programs operated, including if they are currently operating. Describe how the programs mentioned align with the requirements of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. Examples of alignment might include teacher qualifications, use of approved curriculum, use of approved assessments, family engagement, inclusion, teacher-child ratio, focus on continuous quality improvement, etc. And/or describe how the programs mentioned aligned with other state or national models for pre-kindergarten services. For this response, do not assume that the reviewer understands other state or national models. Provide enough description of the model so the reviewer can understand how the model fits a definition of high quality. So this question is complex, but it is designed to allow all applying agencies to highlight a history of offering pre-kindergarten programming. PDE is interested in funding programs with a strong history of offering quality pre-kindergarten services. As such, applicants should respond with details about currently operating pre-kindergarten programs that show commitment to quality. It is important for applicants to provide relevant information about the extent to which the currently operating pre-kindergarten programs align with the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts requirements or other high-quality state or national models. Reviewers will determine the goodness of fit between existing pre-kindergarten programs and the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts requirements when scoring this question. Up to 30 points are awarded for this question for responses with a strong history of offering pre-kindergarten programming that strongly align with Pre-K Counts regulations and/or other state or national models. You can find more information on detailed scoring on page 22 of the application guidance document. Question 2 is all about the community needs assessment. There are parts to this question. The first part, 2A, asks for eligible students. How many eligible students are in your service area defined by your proposed locations? How was the number of eligible students in your service area determined? Okay, here's where you can write about if you know that the data in the unmet need appendix is not quite right, and you can show data showing how it's not quite right. This is where you can kind of answer some of that and provide some of that information for the reviewers, okay? But all of this should be data driven. Question B here, identifying and involving other agencies providing or proposing to provide pre-kindergarten services to eligible student populations in the process. So are there any other agencies providing or proposing to provide, if you have that information, pre-kindergarten services to the eligible population? How do you know? Of these agencies, describe which ones were involved in the community needs assessment process. How were these other agencies involved in the process? 2C, strengths and needs. Describe the outcomes results of the community needs assessment. Describe any identified strengths. Describe any identified needs. For example, did the community needs assessment identify several eligible pre-K counts providers in the service area, which could come together in a partnership agreement? Did the community needs assessment unveil information regarding the need to serve any specific populations of students? For example, children of working families, English language learners, students experiencing homelessness. These are just examples, okay? This doesn't mean you're answering each of these questions here. These are just provided as examples. Applicants must complete a community needs assessment prior to the application process. This is covered in Regulation 405.14. The community needs assessment should include a scan of high quality early learning programs operated in the community, as well as consideration for the needs of families in the targeted service area. The purpose is to ensure services to families are not disrupted and provide information to lead to potential partnerships and collaborations. If other pre-kindergarten services are available in the proposed service area, the applicant should provide a strong rationale for the requested pre-K count services and describe how the proposed services will complement and not compete with the already available pre-kindergarten services. Applicants are also encouraged to include data-driven information about additional risk factors beyond age and income in the rationale for the need for pre-kindergarten services. So there is a whole webinar that we did back in November on the community needs assessment. If you were part of that work and part of our regional meetings, you should have enough information to complete this question. The webinar is available on the How to Apply site for those of you that were not able to attend back then, that you can get kind of that information and more information about what we're meaning here by a community needs assessment. The reviewers will use the responses from A, B, and C to determine the extent to which the applicant conducted a community needs assessment. Up to 30 points will be awarded for responses with strong evidence that a community needs assessment was conducted that is specific for understanding the pre-kindergarten needs of the proposed service area. Responses that include detailed information on all of the following will be scored at the highest level: eligible students, other agencies in the service area providing or proposing to provide pre-kindergarten services to the eligible population, how other agencies were included in the planning process for the application, data-driven information on service area strengths, and data-driven information on service area needs. You can find more information on detailed scoring on page 23 of the application guidance. Question 3 follows up on the community needs assessment information. So based on the results of your community needs assessment, make the connections between the information provided in question 2, A through C, and the need to operate the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts programs in the identified service area, again, defined by the locations proposed in your location charts. Up to 30 points are awarded for responses with a strong rationale for why pre-K count services are needed in the proposed area. The highest scoring responses will provide details that draw directly from information provided in questions 2A through C and the proposed service area, and make explicit connections between the proposed service area and the data or the evidence presented in the rationale. You can find more information on scoring for this question on page 24 of the application guidance. Question 5, question 4 continued. This is question 4, sorry. Describe the reasons, rationale why the applying agency is the best fit for providing Pennsylvania pre-K count services in the defined service area. If there are other agencies in the same service area providing pre-kindergarten services, or if other agencies are applying in the same area, please refer to response in 2B. Be sure to address this in the response. Up to 20 points are awarded for this question, addressing the rationale for why the applying agency is the best fit for providing Pennsylvania pre-K count services in the defined service area. There's more information on detailed scoring on page 24 for this question. Now, question 5. Describe the plan for enrolling students into the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. The plan for enrollment must be transparent and unbiased and must include explicit details on the following. How will children be prioritized for enrollment? Describe the additional risk factors beyond age and income that will impact selection and enrollment decisions. Detail a proposed prioritization strategy, including explicit reference to how enrollment decisions will be made based on those risk factors. The prioritized risk factors should be related to the outcomes results found in the community needs assessment. How will enrollments be coordinated with other agencies offering pre-K services? The response must explicitly address coordination with Head Start, including a strategy for promoting Head Start enrollment for children meeting 100% of the FPL. If other pre-kindergarten opportunities exist within the proposed service area, again, you can check your response to 2B, include information on how enrollments will be prioritized to ensure each child is placed in the most appropriate placement based on their needs and risk factors. Applicants should review Regulation 405.21, targeting children to be served, 405.24 enrollment, and supplemental resource number 004, which has been updated in the 2023 guidance document to be called Enrollment Prioritization Plan Guidance, in developing the response to this question. PKC programs must demonstrate need and recruit and select those children and families with the greatest level of need. As part of that process, programs must develop prioritization strategies and verification and documentation processes and assure they will maintain full enrollment for the duration of the school year. Age and income are the two primary eligibility requirements that all children must meet to be considered for enrollment in Pennsylvania pre-K counts. Additional priorities for enrollment must be developed at the local level that reflect collaborative efforts with local and regional pre-kindergarten efforts. Applicants should provide a detailed strategy for how enrollment will be determined based on the pre-kindergarten landscape, risk factors, and families' needs and preferences. A rationale for the detailed strategy should also be provided. The response to this question should include a detailed prioritization strategy with explicit references to additional risk factors beyond age and income that will impact enrollment decisions. In addition, the strategy should discuss enrollment in the context of other available pre-K services in the area. For this question, up to 30 points will be awarded for responses that include a detailed prioritization strategy with explicit references to additional risk factors beyond age and income that will impact enrollment decisions. The highest scoring responses will include information on prioritizing the 100% to 300% FPL range and specific risk factors related to information provided in the questions about needs identified in the community needs assessment. The reviewer should understand from the response exactly how children will be prioritized for enrollment. The response should also include explicit information regarding enrollment in the context of other available pre-K services in the area. You can find more information on detailed scoring for question 5 on page 26 of the application guidance document. Now it's time for questions for this section, rationale for services.
For the community needs assessment, while it does not have to be uploaded, is there any benefit in doing so?
No, the reviewers will not review any uploads that are not explicitly asked for as part of the application process. So it's up to the applicant to be able to do the community needs assessment and then be able to transfer that information into answering the specific questions about that community needs assessment.
Another question in regards to the community needs assessment. Where can a list of all current pre-K counts locations be found?
The governor's open data portal has that information in a large Excel spreadsheet. You will need to sort that information by the program year you're interested in. That is included in the PowerPoint information for the community needs assessment webinar, the link for that open data portal, or if you just Google PA Governor's Open Data Portal, you'll get to the homepage, and then this information is under early learning services, I believe, or early education maybe.
When operating several locations, do you wish that the narrative and rationale address each individual location or an overview?
Generally an overview. If there are specific locations that may be overlapping with other services provided, you probably should address at the location level. I think that's going to be dependent on your area and the results of your community needs assessment. We're going to be looking for the general service area of kind of all of the locations together. But if there are specific instances where, you're specifically asking for a certain zip code, it would behoove you to kind of call that out and the reason for that.
As it pertains to this section of the grant being more about the narrative process, are there character limits, and how do we define what they are?
There are character limits. I am told they are ridiculously high character limits that should not impact anybody's ability to answer a question concisely within the character limits that are provided. If you should run into an issue during the application process, you can email the RA accounts with specific information about which question you're having problems with, and we will adjust those accordingly. But we have been told that the current character limits should not be restricting anyone from being able to answer any of these questions.
And when it comes to, again, this section of the grant and beyond, is there a Word template that exists to work in separate from eGrants?
There is not. If you have the ability to convert the application guidance to a Word document, you could probably quickly create a quick template.
And Deb, at 11:12, that is all the questions for this section.
All right. Going on to the next section, program description and staffing. This section is worth 150 points. Effective high quality classroom instruction and program instructional philosophies are hallmarks of our Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. Program policies and recruitment and retention of highly effective staff assure high quality Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts programs, securing the best short-term and long-term outcomes for the enrolled students. The questions within this section ask applicants to describe how the program will implement various aspects of the program and to describe the program's approach to staff recruitment and retention. This first question has a lot of parts. It is about program implementation. So there's, I think, A through G here. So there's a lot here. We broke it out so you could really make sure you are addressing each one of these intentionally, and that we could provide some specific guidance for each one of these questions, because some you will be answering just based on your Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funded students, And some questions you will be answering based on your overall pre-kindergarten program. So please pay special attention to the guidance that's provided here. Question 1A asks for the number of classrooms with Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funded students. This is a numerical response. Count only classrooms that will serve any Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funded students. 1B asks for your classroom configurations. Detail the number of students per classroom and how the classrooms will be configured. For example, are they going to be all Pre-K Counts funded students in a classroom? Or will there be classrooms where students from different funding streams are blended together, aka a blended classroom? It is allowable to have blended classrooms. Some of the other funding streams might be Head Start funded children, HISAP funded children, private pay children, CCW child care subsidy children, school funded pre-K children, or locally funded pre-kindergarten programs, children that are funded through those programs. If you are describing a blended model, please describe the anticipated configuration of each classroom. Okay. Applicants should review Regulation 405.43, class size and student staffing ratio, and Regulation 405.22, maximizing resources to help with this question. 1C, ask the teacher-student ratio. It is a numerical response. Add the number of students. Consider all students per classroom, regardless of funding, that will be supervised by one teacher. Okay. Applicants should review 405.43, class size and student staffing ratio. 1D, hours of operation for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funded program. Describe the hours of operation of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts portion of the day. If offering both full day and half day options, you should describe both. Again, the hours per day for PKC must be a minimum of 5 hours for full day slots and 2.5 hours for half day slots. But we do recommend 6 hours for full day and 3 hours for half day. Applicants should review 405.42, program day, and developmentally appropriate instructional practices and activities for this question. Please note, you are only putting in the hours of operation for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts portion of the day for this question. If you are a child care provider and you provide 12 hours of services a day, you are only writing about your Pre-K Counts hours of operation for this question. School year calendar, describe the Pre-K Counts school year calendar. The school year calendar for Pre-K Counts must allow for at least 180 instructional days in a typical school year. School year calendars with 160 instructional days are allowable for startup locations and classrooms. It is encouraged that more than 180 days are scheduled to plan for unexpected closures, etc. Applicants should review 405.41 school term within the regulatory document for help with this question. Curricular philosophy, describe the curricular philosophy as it relates to the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program being proposed. This response should include information about the curriculum or curricula that will be used in classrooms where Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funded students will be served, as well as the general philosophy regarding how the instruction for Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts students will occur. Please review 405.45 curriculum before responding. 1G is behavioral philosophy. Describe the behavior philosophy as it relates to the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program being proposed. Include information about the program's approach to reducing or eliminating suspensions and expulsions. This response might include information about any specific behavior programs that will be implemented. Review Octel's inclusion policy statement and suspension and expulsion policy statement before responding. 1H is about special programming. Describe any special programs and or services that will be offered to Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funded students or families that are above and beyond what is required to implement Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts. This question allows applicants to showcase any programs or supports that will benefit Pennsylvania pre-K counts enrolled students and or families. If the applicant does not offer any special programming or supports, the response should be no additional services or supports will be offered. Applicants will not lose application points for not offering special programming, but applicants who do offer special programming will receive additional points. Here is the scoring. Reviewers will use the responses from 1A through 1H to determine a score for program implementation. You'll notice 1G is not included here. Okay, up to 60 points will be awarded for responses that include information that aligns with the requirements of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program for the following: number of classroom aligns with requested slots and number of proposed lead teachers. Only classrooms with PKC funded students are discussed. Classroom configurations are discussed in detail so that reviewers can understand the student makeup of the classrooms. Teacher-student ratio is not more than 1 to 10. Hours of operation for full day are at least 5 hours of instructional time. Hours of operation for half day are at least 2.5 hours of instructional time. Only the PKC portion of the day is discussed. School year details at least 180 instructional days or 160 days for startup locations classrooms. Curriculum is comprehensive. That is, it covers all learning domains and is aligned with the learning standards for early childhood. The curricular philosophy is discussed so the reviewers can understand how the program believes teaching instruction could occur for optimum outcomes. The program philosophy for handling classroom behaviors is developmentally appropriate for pre-kindergarten students and aligns with Ocdel's policy on preventing and eliminating suspensions and expulsions. The reviewers will also look for examples where details of responses exceed the requirements for Pennsylvania pre-K counts. Programs can earn up to 15 additional points for proposing program innovations and exceeding Pennsylvania pre-K counts requirements in more than one of the following. Examples of exceeding requirements are noted in bold. And again, these are just examples. You might have another thing that exceeds the pre-K counts requirements here that could be counted. These are just examples. So for classroom configurations, again, exceeding the expectations would be that discussion of blended classrooms and really maximizing those resources through use of blended classrooms. The reason that's an exception is because when you blend classrooms, then you need to hire more teachers with an instructional level 1. So it impacts overall program quality more so than just in one pre-K counts classroom within a program. Teacher-student ratio is not more than 1 to 10. So if your teacher-student ratio is less than 1 to 10, so if you're proposing a 1 to 8 ratio or a 1 to 7 ratio, that would be exceeding the requirements. Hours of operation. The hours of operation for exceeding could fall outside the typical school day hours. So maybe you are proposing some non-traditional hours of operation. The school year, extended school years could result in getting these additional points. So more than 9 months of operation with summer hours included. That would be kind of a more year-round model for the program. And then this is where you get additional points for your special program offerings. So for describing special program offerings here. So this is an area where providers can, either ignore this and not worry about the 15 additional points at all. Okay, we're only asking you to meet the pre-K counts requirements. Or this is an opportunity for programs that do a lot of additional things to really showcase their programs and discuss these areas that exceed the pre-K counts requirements. Applicants can find more information on detailed scoring for this section, which is a lot, on page 28 to 30 of the application guidance. And then we move into staffing. This is question 2 in this section. PKC classrooms are staffed with teachers and teacher aides who are trained to provide high quality learning experiences for pre-kindergarten children. Pre-K counts regulations require that lead teachers hold a Pennsylvania Early Childhood Education Teaching Certificate, an N through 3 or a pre-K 4 instructional teaching certificate issued by the Department of Education. And aides must meet one of the following: completion of at least 2 years of full-time post-secondary study or equivalent, possession of an associate's degree or higher, ability to meet a rigorous standard of quality and demonstration of knowledge through a formal state or local academic assessment, or possession of a CDA, a pre-K CDA. So the first question here, what will be the pre-K counts lead teacher salary ranges, and how were the ranges determined? What will be the pre-K counts aid salary ranges, and how were the ranges determined? Discuss the benefits available to lead teachers and aides. The recommended starting lead teacher wage is $45,000 for the pre-K count school year, the 180 days, or $33.33 an hour, or use the comparable public school district starting teacher salary in cases where the comparable public school district teacher salary is higher than the amounts I just discussed. If a lead teacher or aide work beyond the Pennsylvania pre-K counts portion of the day, only the salaries related to the pre-K counts portion of the day should be included in your response. When discussing benefits, be sure to describe which benefits are available to all lead teachers and aides, and which are offered based on preset criteria. Be sure to describe the established criteria in these instances. If it's easier to answer this question in a chart form, I've been told that that is allowable and will be acceptable by the e-grant system. Question B, describe how staff meeting the required qualifications above will be recruited. If you already have staff who qualify, please describe their current credentials in detail and include details on planning for recruitment. You still need to discuss how qualified teachers will be recruited in the event that you lose a currently credentialed teacher. The third part of this question, describe the program's approach to staff retention. Be sure to include the program's approach to ongoing training and professional development. Staff recruiting and retention are critical to ensuring the quality of Pennsylvania pre-K counts programming. While recruitment allows for the acquisition of distinctive teachers, retention helps maintain classroom and program consistency. Applicants should review the following in developing your responses to 2B and 2C, Regulation 405.44, Staffing and Professional Development, 405.64, Teacher Induction Plans and Evaluations, Supplemental Resource number 007, Staff Recruitment and Retention Plan, Supplemental Resource number 008, Early Childhood Education and Teacher Certification, Frequently Asked Questions, Supplemental Resource 10, Teacher Certification Evaluation in Community-Based Programs, and Supplemental Resource 11, Teacher Induction for Community-Based Providers. Obviously, a lot of resources there, a lot to be discussed and thought about in this area. For scoring, reviewers will use responses from 2A, 2B, and 2C to determine a score for meeting staff requirements for Pennsylvania pre-K counts. Up to 75 points for responses that include detailed examples on the following. Salary ranges for lead teachers and aides are included. Salary ranges for lead teachers are within the recommended range. Staff have access to multiple benefits. Some lead teachers and some aides have current credentials to meeting PA pre-K counts qualifications, and multiple recruitment and retention strategies are discussed. And the program's approach to ongoing training and PD aligns with the Pennsylvania pre-K counts regulations. Sorry, that should be the last bullet there. Applicants can find more information on detailed scoring for staffing on pages 31 to 33 of the application guidance document. And now we'll pause for questions on program description and or staffing questions.
When providing student to teacher ratios, do we list for the lead agency or the lead agency and any partners?
If they're the same, then you'll discuss that they're the same and you can give one number. If they are going to be different, you should delineate that out in your response.
Should we submit our flexible instruction plan under the school year calendar?
No. Again, the reviewers will not be reviewing anything that's not explicitly asked for.
How are special programs defined?
So there are some examples given there. That it could be anything. So if you think it's a special program that's above and beyond what pre-K counts should be offering, you can add it there. You can be as liberal as you want, but you need to be describing it. You need to make sure that it is going to be offered to the pre-K count students. An example might be you have special instructors come in and cover, computer skills or something like that. It could be health services that are provided beyond what is required of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Count services. This is where it's really on the applicant to understand the Pre-K Counts requirements and then understand what would be considered above and beyond that in writing your response. Maybe you implement a specific, very strong social and emotional program, positive behavior support within your program, and you're going to be including the Pennsylvania Pre-K Count students. So that might be another example.
When thinking about the term teacher, are we specifically referring to the certified lead or any staff in the classroom?
This is the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program, so you need to use the definitions as defined by the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. So there are only two staffing roles in the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. Teacher, that is the lead teacher that is responsible for that classroom and assigned to that classroom and is the one required to have the instructional certification. And then there are aides. So understanding that we have a mixed delivery system, and within your provider type, you might have assistant teachers, you might have group supervisors, you might have co-teachers. We are explicitly using the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts definitions of lead teacher and aide for this application.
When speaking of ratio, does that include the teacher and aide?
Yes.
Do lead agencies need to?
Well, it's asking, the question asks, I believe, number of students per one teacher. I believe that's the way the question is asked.
Do lead agencies need to include each of their partners into the salary information section?
If it's different, yes.
Regarding classroom configurations, if the grant states we will provide 2 classrooms for 36 pre-K counts children, that would be 18 children in each room, but later we decide to redistribute into one classroom of 20 and another of 16, is that allowed?
So I believe the question says you're anticipated, or it used some words that kind of indicates that kind of thing might change. So again, we can be flexible after the contract is fully executed, but you should be writing this application with your best knowledge of what you want to do now, moving forward for this school year.
The guidance suggests recommended ranges for lead teacher salaries, but where would we find information on recommended aide salaries?
We do not have recommended aide salaries currently for the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program. So there is, that information does not exist.
For a school district, as it relates to providing salary information, do we list our steps and their salaries?
If that's how you define your ranges, because we're asking for salary ranges, if you noticed how the question is worded. So if you're in a step type situation, we don't need to see all the steps. I think we would need to see the lowest range and the highest range. That would be the range to answer the question the way it's asked. And then if you wanted to provide some details about, we're in a school district, we follow a step, these are the lowest and highest for a range like that. That's all we would really need in that response.
Deb, are you familiar with any of the legalities around offering health insurance to pre-K counts teachers, but not other members of the program or other employees?
I am personally not aware of that. If that's the reason you don't offer that, then you won't be putting that down as a benefit in your response in the application.
All right, another question about salary. Is the $45,000 recommended salary regardless of how many pre-K counts children are in the room or in a blended classroom? So if only 7 of 14 children are pre-K counts, is the salary recommendation still 45,000?
Yes. So ideally, that teacher is still teaching a full classroom of students, regardless of whether they're all pre-K counts funded or not. So I'm going to say yes. I'll think about that a little bit more for the official response, but my unofficial response right now is yes.
Regarding flexible instruction plans, I know you said a bit ago that there is no need to upload those. Should they be referenced anywhere in regard to part of meeting 180 days?
Sorry, can you repeat that one, Kurt? My mind was still on the 45,000.
Oh, sure. So
Sorry.
you had mentioned earlier that flexible instruction plans do not need to be uploaded. However, in answering the question about meeting 180 days, is it recommended that the FIP be referenced if that's part of their plan?
So your school calendar should be set up assuming 180 days of instruction, of in-person instruction. The only thing you could potentially write about for the flexible instruction is maybe some Act 80 days. That would be appropriate, but you should not be really basing your 180-day school calendars on doing a lot of virtual instruction. That's not the intention of that anymore since we're post-pandemic. So again, other than maybe 1 or 2 Act 80 days throughout the year that you're going to count because you're doing flexible instruction during those days, you really shouldn't be referencing your flexible instruction plans for your school calendar. It should be 180 days of in-person instruction.
Yeah, would you be able to confirm again what the minimum qualification is for an aide?
So there's a list of 4 potential. I can go back. Again, this is also in the regulatory document. So they have to have at least one of the following: 2 years of full-time post-secondary study or the equivalent, a possession of an associate's degree or higher, ability to meet a rigorous standard of quality and demonstration of knowledge through formal state and local academic assessment, or the possession of a CDA. And in our guidance, we do call that out, that needs to be a pre-K CDA. So one of those 4.
If we are a current provider and we want to increase slots, would you like in the narrative where we were in the last grant or where we are currently and why we are proposing an increase?
This is a brand new application. You are writing for everything that you want: slots, funding, where you're putting the slots. So you're just writing the application as for what you're applying for. I'm not sure if I'm missing a nuance to that question or not.
No, I think you answered it.
Okay.
If we partner with a local university for students needing intern hours after completing their student teaching, where would we include this, or should we even mention this?
So that is probably going to be better responded to in the collaboration section of this application. That's more of a collaboration. It doesn't really, it's not a required staffing element of pre-K counts, so I don't think I would put it in the staffing section. unless you're explicitly using those people as aides in the pre-K counts classroom. But to me, they're not really staff. It's really a collaboration with your IHE, and that's in the next section we're going to talk about next.
Yeah. See, I'm just checking through, Deb, if there's any more. I think, Deb, at 11:38, that finishes questions for this section.
All right, moving on to collaborations. This section is worth 130 points. This section asks applicants to describe various collaborative relationships necessary to implement an effective pre-K counts program. To maximize funding resources and assure a systematic approach to the early learning services provided within communities, Pennsylvania pre-K counts providers should involve a wide array of other community agencies offering similar or complementary services. Applicants should review 405.31, coordination and collaboration with agencies providing services to young children when responding to these questions. New this year, letters of support and/or formal agreements specific to Pennsylvania pre-K counts collaborations may be uploaded within this section to enhance the quality of any of the questions within this section and will be considered as explicit evidence of collaboration if they are recent, dated after March 1st, 2022, and contain details of collaboration and are signed by an official representative of the agency. Title is required. Letters of support and/or formal agreements should relate directly to the agencies addressed within this section's questions, including collaborations that will directly impact the Pennsylvania pre-K counts program, and should be clearly labeled so reviewers can understand which questions the letters of support and/or formal agreements address. So here's where, when I said if it's not explicitly asked for, the reviewers won't review it. This section, we are allowing additional information to be uploaded that will be reviewed by the reviewers. These are letters of support or formal agreements to enhance the questions in this section. Question 1, describe Pennsylvania pre-K counts program-specific collaborations with early intervention, both infant, toddler, and preschool, and with other behavioral and/or mental health agencies. Applicants should review the following in developing a response: 405.51, inclusive environments, and the Ocdale policy on inclusion. There is also a new supplemental resource in the new regulatory document. I believe it is number 014. That was approved after the approval of this documentation. So that is also an additional supplemental resource that can be reviewed for this question. The intent of this question is to ascertain the applicant's understanding of inclusion and the policies the proposed program either currently has or will have regarding inclusive practices. It is also an opportunity for applicants to discuss how they collaborate with early intervention and/or other mental health and behavioral health agencies beyond what is required by law. Applicants may write about their attempts to collaborate and still receive points for their response. Up to 20 points awarded for this question for responses with explicit details and examples about collaborations with early intervention, infant, toddler, and pre-K, and other mental health, behavioral health agencies beyond what is required by law. To receive the highest scoring level, responses must explicitly reference connections to the Ocdale inclusion policy and provide detailed information about ongoing collaboration with early intervention and at least one other mental health or behavioral health agency. Can be their own agency if these services are provided. There must also be explicit reference to how pre-K counts children will benefit from these services. There's more information on page 34 of the application guidance on this detailed scoring. Question 2, describe pre-K counts program-specific collaborations with early learning resource centers that provide childcare subsidy in the proposed service area and collaborations with agencies that provide childcare before and after the pre-K portion of the day. For example, childcare centers or group homes, family childcare providers, or licensed nurseries. Up to 20 points for responses with explicit detail about collaborations with early learning resource centers that provide childcare subsidy in the proposed service area and collaborations with agencies that provide childcare before and after the pre-K portion of the day. Applicants can find more information on detailed scoring for this question on page 34 to 35. Question 3, describe the pre-K counts program specific collaborations with Head Start. If the applying agency is a Head Start, describe how the proposed pre-K counts program will be integrated into your Head Start program and or enhanced. Up to 20 points for responses with explicit details or examples about collaborations with Head Start, or if the applying agency is a Head Start agency, the response has explicit details and examples about how the proposed pre-K counts program will be integrated and or enhanced. More information on detailed scoring for this question can be found on page 35 of the application guidance. Describe Pennsylvania pre-K counts program-specific collaborations with school districts. Include details on the following: establishing channels of communication with the school districts within the proposed service area, including how child records will be shared, establishing transition practices, developing curricular alignment, consolidating activities such as professional development, and sharing services. If the applying agency is a school district, describe how the proposed Pennsylvania pre-K counts program will be integrated or enhanced. Up to 20 points for responses with detailed examples on the following. So basically everything in that question is bulleted out here: establishing the channels of communications, how records will be shared, transition practices, curricular alignment, consolidating activities, and sharing services. Again, if the applying agency is a school district, the response for 20 points to be awarded has to have several explicit details or examples about how the proposed program will be integrated or enhanced into the other school district classrooms or building or services. Applicants can find more information for this question and detailed scoring on page 35 to 36 of the application guidance. Question 5 in this section: describe pre-K counts relevant collaborations with any other community agencies in the program county that have not already been included in the above questions. In order to maximize funding resources and assure a systematic approach to the early learning services provided within communities, Pennsylvania pre-K counts providers shall coordinate and collaborate with other community agencies in their county on activities such as professional development, family outreach, and child enrollment strategies, to the extent practicable, to the advantage of all of the and creation of greater efficiencies. Some examples of other community agencies might include libraries, institutions of higher education, and/or health agencies. Up to 20 points for responses with explicit details and examples about collaborations with multiple community agencies. There's more information on detailed scoring for this question on page 36 of the application guidance document. Question 6, describe the program's family engagement approach by explaining how families of the Pennsylvania pre-K counts enrolled students will be engaged in each of the following areas. So we broke up the standards into different questions to make sure that we are getting explicit responses for each of the family engagement toolkit standards. So 6A, you're explaining how families of enrolled pre-K count students will be engaged in learning communities that connect families to community resources that support families' interests, goals, and needs. Explain how the interests, goals, and needs of the families of the Pennsylvania pre-K counts enrolled students will be understood by the program, and how families will be connected to community resources to meet their interests, goals, and needs. 6B, you're explaining how learning communities build partnerships with families that are strengths-based, authentic, reciprocal, and respectful. Explain how the Pennsylvania pre-K counts program, classrooms, and staff will build such partnerships with families. 6C, learning communities partner with families to identify information, resources, and strategies to support them in their role as teachers, models, encouragers, monitors, and advocates as they support their child's learning and development. Explain how the PKC program, classrooms, and staff will assist families in supporting their child's learning and development. 6D, Learning communities provide intentional opportunities for families to connect and engage with each other. Explain how the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program will work to connect families of enrolled students to one another. Learning communities support families as they develop their leadership and advocacy skills. Explain how the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program will assist families in supporting their leadership and advocacy skills. And learning communities build partnerships with families during times of transition. Explain how the Pre-KC program will assist families during times of transition. Family engagement is an important element that contributes to the overall success of a Pre-K Counts program and the children receiving services. Family engagement extends beyond point-in-time activities or events and requires vigilant planning and an understanding of the diverse situations of each family. Applicants should use the 6 standards found within the Pennsylvania Family Engagement Birth, College, Career, and Community Ready framework. Those standards are explicitly found in pages 32 to 50 of that document. And again, this is within your application guidance so that you can link right to that document. You should use that document to craft your response to this question. The intent of this question is to understand the applicant's understanding of family engagement and the policies the proposed program either currently has or will have regarding family engagement. It is also an opportunity for applicants to discuss their approach to engaging families and make explicit connections to each of the areas found within the family engagement framework. Reviewers will use the responses from 6A through 6F to determine a score for this question. Each question relates to one of the 6 standards in the Pennsylvania Family Engagement Birth through College, Career, and Community Ready framework. Up to 30 points will be awarded for responses with details, examples of family engagement policies and/or practices that align to the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts regulations and the Pennsylvania Family Engagement Birth through College, Career, and Community Ready framework for each of the 6 questions. Applicants can find more information on detailed scoring for this question on page 37 through 38 of the application guidance. Time to pause for collaboration questions.
So Deb, we'll revisit that question now. If a provider or if a grantee is working or collaborating with a local university to support students who need intern hours, where would they best speak to this in this section of the grant?
So I think that would be in the collaborations with other agencies not already covered. And there would need to be some connection to how that activity, obviously it supports the IHE for the interns, but you would also need to kind of write of how the Pre-K Count students are benefiting by or the staff, right? The program itself, how the Pre-K Counts program is benefiting by having those interns in the classroom as well. So I believe that was I think it was question number 5 within this section.
And just to acknowledge, there are more than a handful of questions still pending that we will come back to at the end section of today's webinar. But at this time, Deb, at 11:51, there are no other questions about collaborations.
All right, we will move into the final narrative section of the application, and that is the program assurances. So this section does not award any points, but it must be completed as part of the application process. Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts applicants must provide assurance that they understand and have the capacity to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program as outlined in the statute regulations and guidelines document. Applicants will be asked in the program assurances section to select from a yes or no drop-down menu to indicate whether they can comply with all of these assurances. This document provides guidelines for reference in completing the application questions below. Failure to respond in the affirmative, so selecting a yes response to any of the program assurances, will result in disqualification from funding consideration. So this section is basically taking the regulatory document and pulling out some of the most relevant pieces to ask you to say that you are complying, you know what this means, and that you are saying you will comply with this requirement as part of receiving these grant funds. So I did pull out all of the program assurances that are outlined in the application. So we'll read through these so that everyone understands what is being asked of them when they are applying for this grant. So the first assurance: by submitting this application, I represent and assure on behalf of the applicant that I have received, understood, and will comply with the provisions of the Pennsylvania regulations and guidance. So that is saying that we gave you the link, it's on the How to Apply site, that you've read those regulations, you understand them. You can again watch the webinars to help you understand some of those requirements, and that you will, as the person signing off on this grant, you will comply with these requirements. Next assurance: the program will serve only those children whose families have been documented with income at 300% or below of the federal poverty level guideline. We should not have any programs enrolling families into the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program over that income threshold. That is something we monitor on a monthly basis. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will abide by the immunization requirements of the guidance. So again, that is located within the regulatory document. There may be different requirements based on your provider type in this area. So that's also important to consider, that you need to understand the provider type that you have applied for under the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program, and you need to be complying with all the requirements of your provider type as well. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, has established and implemented a written emergency response plan as required by state law, or will do so prior to receipt of any Pre-K Counts awarded funds. The program will adhere to the Pennsylvania Departments of Education guidelines for inclusion. Those are outlined in the standard terms and conditions that you will sign off as part of this contract. The program will adhere to the PDE-Ochdale Joint Policy Statement on Suspension and Expulsion. The program will enter specified data into the Early Learning Network within the time periods indicated by PDE and will keep data current. The program will assure segregation of program funds in their fiscal record keeping. I assure that the applicant, including all partners, will comply with the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts audit requirements. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, agrees to use Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funds to supplement and not supplant public funds received from another source. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, agrees to avoid the use of Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funds in a manner that replaces services that are currently being provided by Head Start grantees. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will provide either 2.5 or 5 hours of pre-kindergarten instructional program for a planned program year of a minimum of 180 days for Pre-K Counts funded students at no cost to the parents or families of such children. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will use PA-PKC funds for the exclusive use of PA Pre-K Counts programs and classrooms. This is where we get into kind of talking about cost allocation and the budgets. I assure that if a childcare provider or any partner funded under this grant is a childcare provider, the entity is at least a star 3. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will comply with all Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts monitoring requirements established by PDE, including but not limited to purchasing and participating in assessment programs that PDE has identified for the assessment of student progress and the assessment of learning environment and attending the required training sessions. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will abide by the legal requirements for staff background checks that regulate its type of program. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will use Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts funds to support activities and for materials and program content that is secular in nature. That's an important one if you're a religious entity applying. As long as you meet eligible provider type, you are eligible to apply. But in terms of the activities and materials used and the curriculum used in the Pre-K Counts classrooms, they must be secular in nature. I consent to the use of any data or statements I or my designee provides herein for the purpose of publication and reporting by PDE, and understand that the data or statements may be presented in full, in part, or paraphrased. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will comply with the requirements pertaining to the age of the children to be enrolled in the program, the student-teacher ratio, the hiring of staff who meet the qualifications specified, the professional development requirements, and all monitoring and assessment requirements. I assure that the PKC program will begin submitting enrollment data to Octal on August 15th, 2023, and be fully enrolled by November 1st, 2023, and in the future by the opening day of the 180-day program year, and recognize that failure to do so may result in a loss of funds and return of slots to Octal. Obviously, those dates will be negotiable, a little bit flexible in this first program year, depending on when contracts are executed. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will cooperate in the development of a continuous quality improvement plan or CQI plan as requested by Octal. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will participate with Octal in all required grantee meetings and work together with Octal cooperatively to field a sound, high quality program, including meeting all reporting requirements in a timely and accurate manner. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will respond to any changes in Pennsylvania school code in a timely manner. When savings can be realized by such changes, every effort will be made by the applicant and partners in a joint application to use such savings to increase the number of children served. When this is not possible, any savings will be returned to PDE for reallocation. I assure that the applicant, including all partners in a joint application, will update this application upon request within 48 hours of notification of award and/or notification of comments requiring updates to assure timely contracting. That is a new assurance this year to make sure that programs are updating their applications in a timely manner, so we're not waiting months and months for these contracts to be executed. And then there's two that are for joint applicants. Joint applicants must agree to the following assurances. Single applicants should select not applicable for these two. I assure that as a lead agency with one or more partners that I will enter into a mutually agreed to and signed written agreement with all of my pre-K counts partners concerning the governance and operation of the program. And I assure that as a lead agency with one or more partners that I will provide all information sent to me from Octal regarding any aspect of the pre-K counts program to a representative designated by each partner to be the recipient of all such communications on behalf of the partner entity. So I know that was a lot to read through, but I feel like sometimes maybe we just gloss over these program assurances. I wanted to kind of instill the importance of what you're signing off on when you submit this application. There are program expectations. We do need to be stewards of taxpayers' dollars. I just wanted to kind of call out these program assurances and actually read through them so everyone actually hears what they're signing off on. And of course, most of these are regulations that are considered regulatory requirements in the regulations document or policy. Any program assurance questions?
Deb, there was only one that came in, which I did type a response to, but I wanted it to be available for everybody. And that is the confirmation that when it comes to the assurance relating to the 300% income eligibility, you are in fact only determining that eligibility at the initial enrollment into the program. So if the family's income exceeds 300% in year 2 or any point beyond the initial enrollment, you are not redetermining eligibility and the family does not become ineligible.
That is correct. If that child is staying with your program and they were already determined eligible by your pre-K counts program, that is once and done for the 2-year enrollment, and they can only be enrolled in the program for 2 years. If that family switches pre-K counts program, so eligibility is determined by each provider. So if that family should switch from one to another, right, they would be redetermined at the new pre-K counts provider. Just to clarify that a little bit.
So, of course, the assurances are signed in good faith that everything is going to go according to plan. However, in instances where a program cannot necessarily respond to certain items quickly due to maybe board involvement, those types of situations. Are there any suggestions for how to handle those types of situations?
Communication
goes to-
with your assigned preschool specialist is of utmost importance. So the expectation, again, with this new requirement, it's specific to the contracting, is 48 hours of updating. If that is not attainable, then that needs to be discussed with the preschool specialist. There needs to be an agreed upon time constraint so that that is not sitting for months and months. Hopefully that answers that question.
Another question in relation to family eligibility, and Deb, you might want to answer this or just defer to the regs and guidance. The question is, are there any recommended best ways for determining income, such as pay stubs, tax documents, et cetera?
There's a whole supplemental resource on that. So again, that's something you'll need to take some ownership of and go back and read that regulatory document. I don't have the supplemental resource number off the top of my head, but it's one of the earlier ones in the document. And there is a table of contents, so you should be able to find that pretty easily in the document. The table of contents is linked. So if you see it in the table of contents, you can click right on it. It'll take you right to that section of the document.
So at 12:04, Deb, that is all the questions we have for this piece.
All right, moving into our final section here of the application. So that was all the narrative section. The second section of the application is your budget. 500 points for this section. Line item budget with descriptions must be submitted and complete. The budget request and description support the program the grantee has proposed in the application. There are two pieces of fiscal documentation required for successful application within the eGrant system. The budget detail line item budget with detailed budget descriptions and the budget summary. The budget summary is generated by the eGrant system after the line item detail is completed. Applications that include partners in their model must also include a budget template for each partner. The partner budget should be uploaded as an attachment to the eGrants application within the budget section. A line item budget template for partners can be downloaded either within the eGrant system itself or from the partner line item budget on the How to Apply site. So there's two places you can find that. The line item budget or budget detail, this is completed in the eGrant system and can be found in the separate budget section. Each line item must be appropriately cost allocated by category. Applicants must complete the description section of the budget template to explain the method or methods of cost allocation used for each line item and be thoroughly described and clearly related to the proposed project. There should be a clear relationship between the proposed activities and where the money is going to be spent. The budget descriptions should provide detailed information so that reviewers can understand, one, how the budget amount was calculated, and two, specifics regarding cost allocations or how the funding will be used. All requested items must be thoroughly explained and clearly related to the proposed project. There should be a sound relationship between the proposed activities and where the money is going to be spent. An example of the budget description using cost allocation methods is listed in the fiscal supplement document. Recommended percentage ranges for each line item are also provided within the fiscal supplement, which should be reviewed prior to your budget preparation and submission. You can access that fiscal supplement on the How to Apply site for support in completing the budget detail. That fiscal supplement is super helpful. We also have a webinar, Getting to Know Pre-K Accounts webinar specifically on fiscal matters. There is some slides in that webinar around using the fiscal supplement. So that would be another resource for you to understand how to complete your budget appropriately for this application. As I said, the second part is the budget summary. This will be generated by the eGrant system after the line item budget detail is completed. It is important for the applicant to check that the budget summary figures align with the budget detail, the line item budget, as well as with the requested grant amount entered into the general information section of the application. all the funding requested in the general information section, the line item budget, and the budget summary should all say the same amount. Okay. If you are proposing to work with partners, please have a separate budget for each partner. We will review your document and all partner documents to see the methodology and distribution proposed for your total grant. For scoring, there's a lot here. Reviewers will first skim the budget detail and descriptions to understand to which line items the applicant has assigned funds. Reviewers will also review uploaded partner budgets for joint applicants. Reviewers will deduct points for budget requests which do not align with and support the information presented within the program proposal. The goal of scoring the budget documentation for this review is to be sure that the allocation of the funding proposed supports the fidelity and quality of the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program and details allowable Pre-K Counts expenditures. Reviewers will not provide a detailed analysis of the numerical figures presented in the budget, as these will most likely be negotiated with approved grantees, but will score this section being cognizant of answering this question. Does the budget request and narrative support the program description the grantee has proposed? 50 points will be deducted for each distinct major discrepancy, and 10 points will be deducted for each distinct minor discrepancy. 50 points will be deducted in cases where the same minor discrepancy is made multiple times. Examples of major and minor discrepancies are provided below, but because each application will be unique, not every possible discrepancy can be covered. Reviewers will use the fiscal supplement when reviewing the budget. Major discrepancies include but are not limited to the following. The amount of funding requested in the general information section does not match the budgeted amount. The grantee describes a partnership but does not include a line item for pass-through budget to partners. A third-party entity has included lead teacher salaries on their budget. The budget includes contracted services for lead teacher and or lead teacher salary is not included on the budget except for third-party entities. Some more major discrepancies. A significant cost or line item is inflated beyond reason. Use the fiscal supplement percentages as a guide. If a budgeted line items are higher than the recommended percentages, a reasonable rationale must be included in the budget detail or points should be deducted. Grantees included 4 lead teachers and 4 aides in the program design, but the salary line item only includes the lead teachers. Grantee indicates a blended classroom in program description, but does not cost allocate within the budget narrative or budget detail. The justification for multiple budgeted line items is missing or limited in detail so that the reviewer cannot understand how funding is being calculated and or used. Some minor discrepancies might include, but are not limited to, the amounts requested for one line item does not match the amount described in the budget narrative. There's a dollar amount inconsistency. Costs are included, but are entered on the wrong line item. Salary ranges on budget do not align with salary ranges provided in application section, program description, and staffing question 2A. A specific cost does not align with the guidance provided in this fiscal supplement. The justification for the budgeted line item is limited in detail so that the reviewer cannot fully understand how funding is being calculated and or used, even if the reviewer can imply what is being justified. If the same minor discrepancy occurs multiple times, a deduction will only occur once, but will result in a minor discrepancy being a major one. For example, if all line items are missing or have limited justification, this would be considered a major discrepancy and 50 points would be deducted only once. Reviewers will review uploaded partner budgets for joint applicants and point deductions will be made following the scoring noted above. The following points also will be deducted when partner budgets are missing. So there's a chart here because people are going to be proposing different levels of partnerships. This chart details the number of proposed partners from 1 to more than 20 in various groupings. So if points deducted if all of them are missing, and the lead is passing all of direct service funding through to partners. In that instance, we do not have a budget to score, so that those applications will be disqualified from the review process. Points deducted if all the partner budgets are missing and the lead is passing some of the money through to partners, but we are able to review the lead budget within eGrants, then these are the points that will be deducted. Points deducted if half of the partner budgets are missing, okay? And then points deducted if less than half are missing. So again, had to kind of think about this from all the possibilities here with multiple partners and multiple scenarios of how joint applicants are set up. So this chart is in the application guidance for your review. Budget section questions.
So Deb, there's just one question right now that pertains to budget, and then we're going to roll back through the various lingering questions. This is just confirmation that all budget should be written to the 11,000 proposed cost per child, not the current 10,000.
That is correct. This application will be based on the 11,000 for full day slots and the 5,500 for half day slots. If that is not passed, then we'll look at that question that was checked if you would accept a lower cost per child or the current cost per child of 10,000. And at that point, we would need to update applications based on the funding we receive.
Okay, so this time I'm going to go back and work through some of the outstanding questions. On the letter of intent, is the signature CAO the same person as our authorized signer or the CEO of the agency?
It doesn't really matter as long as the person that you're putting on the letter of intent is listed in Aetna under that AUN and provider type. So when we go in Aetna to check, we look at kind of all the people. You can list more than one person in the Aetna system. So for some agencies, there's only one person listed, but for others, there's multiple. So as long as a person is in Aetna, that's what we check.
Is the eGrants user ID the same thing as the username, or is there a different ID we need for the letter of intent?
So the letter of intent asks for your eGrants user ID. If you have applied in eGrants before, you should have an eGrants user ID. If you know what that is, put it on the letter of intent. If you don't know what that is, even if you know you have one, it's not that big of a deal if you don't have that portion of the LOI completed.
If we have two locations that will serve students, are we a single applicant?
If they are locations under the same legal entity, then yes, you are a single applicant. If those locations are their own legal entities, then you may need to do a partnership situation. That's a dependent question.
I have a group daycare home. My capacity is 12 children at a time. This is a 5-year grant. Do I only request for 12 children?
So it's kind of a two-part question. So as I said before, this application is for school year 22-23. So you're writing all of your responses, you're doing your budgets, you're doing your funding requests based on 1 year, school year 22-23, okay? What will happen if you're awarded funding is you get funding for that year, and then you'll go through a continuation grant process every year. The group homes are really, you really have to think about the program requirements and what your license, your DHS license says you can serve. So there's, again, a lot of nuances to these questions. It's really up to the applicant to understand their program and what they're requesting. So in pre-K counts, the children being served and being funded have to be eligible. They have to be age and income eligible, first of all. So, and then for the slots requested, if you're only licensed to serve 12 children in your group home, Are you going to serve all 12 pre-K counts children? So are all 12 of those children going to be income eligible for pre-K counts at below 300%? And are all of them 3 and 4-year-olds? If that's the case, then you can apply for 12. If you're a group home that serves mixed age children and maybe you only have 6 current preschoolers and 6, making numbers up, so don't fault me for ratios here because the ratios are probably going to be wrong, but say you have 4 if it's dollars and you have 6 preschoolers or some configuration of a mixed age group. You can't apply for 12 slots because not all 12 of those kids will actually be eligible for pre-K counts funding. So you kind of have to do that work to figure out what's realistic for how many slots you can actually serve and meet the pre-K counts requirements. I hope that's helpful. It's a little bit confusing when we're talking about group homes because it's not like a typical classroom setting, but that's what you have to think about.
Where can we find more information about this new chart you were speaking about in eGrants that identifies full day, half day slots?
So that's a chart that you're completing as part of the application. There's not really more information about it. It's a question in the application. It's just how that question is set up is differently than how we've asked it in the past.
If your pre-K counts program has a contract with an intermediate unit, does this qualify as a contract with the Commonwealth?
I'm not sure of the relevance of that question. I'm not quite sure what. I don't know why that question's being asked. So maybe whoever asked that, if you can ask it a different way, I'm not sure.
So we'll wait for that person to potentially resubmit. Where do you find the district fast fact information?
So there's a link within the application guidance. It's an active link. Pull that up. When you go to that section where we talk about risk factors and how that's going to be scored, that link is right there. You could also Google Pennsylvania Future Ready Index and it'll take you to that as well.
Is there a specific web platform or web browser that is most compatible with PDE suites and eGrants?
I believe there is, and I believe that is covered in Appendix C.
If we have a classroom with 20 children, if both teachers in that room meet lead teacher qualifications, can they each be deemed a lead teacher with a group of 10 children? So can there be 2 lead teachers in a room of 20 children?
I mean, there can be. There's nothing that excludes you from doing that. It's not necessary for the pre-K counts requirements. Like, it's fine for you to designate one as the lead teacher of that classroom. I mean, there's pros and cons probably to doing that both ways, but that is really up to you. There's no reason you can't do that, and there's no explicit reason why you should do that.
Is there a way to print the grant with our information filled out so that we can review it prior to submitting it?
So there is a review prior to submission. I think that populates as a PDF that could be printed, but I'm not 100% sure. So we can check on that.
Deb, I'm going to kind of answer one question on my way to giving you the second question. So the first question is there a place that tells us what costs are allowable for pre-K counts? Which the answer to that is, of course, the fiscal supplement, which can be found on the How to Apply page. Then the second question that I do want to sit with you is the fiscal supplement and what's contained in it the only allowable costs for pre-K counts?
So I think that's going to depend on line items, Kurt, in the fiscal supplement. There's, again, there's some flexibility even within that fiscal supplement. If it's not explicitly in there though, and you are requesting funds for it, you need to put some kind of justification or why you're requesting funds within your budget and how it supports what you're proposing in the Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts program.
Deb, this question is about MPI numbers and some specifics. If a program's MPI number is 7 digits, not 7, will we need to get a 9-digit MPI for this application?
No. 7 or 9, 11 or 13 is acceptable.
Going to read this question as it's posed, and then we can work through it. If we have multiple partners, is it that we should enter by line item the lead agency's budget with the partner pass-through amounts listed, and then upload the spreadsheet template that includes the partner's detailed line budgets on each of their respective tabs?
So multiple partners, the pass-through amount is one line item in the lead agency budget. So you won't be doing separate line items for all of your partners. It's one line item that will reflect all of the pass-through funds. In the justification for that line item, you're gonna have the total number of all your pass-through funds. So say you're partnering with 3 agencies and you're giving each agency $100,000. So your total is $300,000. That's what's on your pass-through line item. In the justification, you will break out, because you're cost allocating, you're going to say $100,000 to daycare number 1 or partner number 1, $100,000 to partner number 2, $100,000 to partner number 3. Okay, you're explaining how you got $300,000 in your justification. Then you're submitting a partner, they're giving to you their budget, a complete line item budget on the template that shows how they are going to expend that $100,000 that is being passed through to them. The lead agency may also have other line items if they're holding back some of that money to do other, maybe they're providing all the professional development, and maybe they're buying the curriculum for all of the partners. They would have that on their own budget. All right, so that's how you work through a joint kind of budget situation.
Deb, can you confirm for us that the fiscal supplement currently posted to the Pre-K Counts How to Apply page is the most recent version of that supplement?
I believe that is the most recent version. Kurt, you would know better than I if that's the most. I'm pretty sure it is.
Wanted to get it clearly from the grant officer on this one. Does the budget template include all of the specific allocations, or do we have to develop our own template?
If you're talking about the partner budget template, it has the allowable line items that you can put expenses in. It's aligned to what is in the eGrant system.
And the last question as of right now, Deb, can you remind us again, what is the deadline for both the letter of intent and the final grant application?
Letter of intent is March 28th by 3 p.m. and the application deadline is April 25th by 3 p.m. I am saying those dates without having the application guidance open in front of me. I think they are correct, so please check the application guidance to confirm that those dates are in the application guidance.
How do we get a new partner an MPI number if they currently do not have one, for example, a school district?
So in the application guidance, there is a section on MPI number. I don't have the exact page number right now, but it is in there. And as I mentioned earlier, if you do not have an MPI number, or you're not sure if an agency has an MPI number, in that section in the application guidance, it tells you to call the ELN help desk to check first. Please do that step. Once you call the ELN help desk, they will say, oh my gosh, yes, they do have an MPI number from 8 years ago, use this number. Or they might say, you're right, they don't have one. At this point, you can enter zeros. Please do not enter zeros without having called the ELN help desk to check first.
Deb, this question might really speak to the importance of current eligibility when writing the application. On the application, can you apply to have a partner and then have slots be denied if that partner is not open in time?
So we will review partners' eligibility status as part of the review. It will not necessarily negate them from getting slots, but they will not be able to serve pre-K count slots until they are meeting a eligible provider type. The December 1st date, again, is kind of our fallback to assure that 180 days can be met. So if there is question about eligibility and meeting eligibility in a timely manner, pre-K count slots should not be served in any uneligible provider before that provider is eligible to serve children. And the 160 or the 180 days needs to be provided in this school year, or funding will be reduced. So those are kind of the stipulations. Funding will be reduced for this program year. So if it's a situation where a partner provider or even a location doesn't get up and running until, say, February because of some reason, and they only got in, say, I don't know, 100 days, 90 days, would do the math, 80 days maybe, the grant amount will be reduced, prorated by the number of days they were able to serve or not able to serve. And then when we do continuation grant, if they are eligible at time of continuation, most likely we would give the full allocation for the following school year. But again, these are very case-to-case instances. Obviously, we want providers up and running and serving children, for the 180 or 160 days this program year. In some cases, it's not possible, so we do have some flexibility there, but with that flexibility, it could include funding reductions for this school year. So spending, you need to be aware of that when you're spending money, because you may not get it all if you don't serve the students for 160 days.
Deb, I want to pose kind of a theoretical question to draw out some more information on this point. If I am writing a grant with a partner, while we're talking about this partner location that may not be open in time to get enough days in, does the partner I'm writing in need to have at least one eligible location currently to be written into the grant at all?
So technically, we don't have a way to really check that or enforce that. We do look at it, but they would not be able to even get any of their pass-through funds or anything until they are actually eligible. It's not an ideal situation. Let's just say that. But there's nothing really precluding that in the regulatory document right now.
Okay. In the first year of the grant or at a new location, is the 180 days still required?
So for this program year, technically, everybody should be thinking about 160 days. Everyone technically is considered a new grantee this year. Anybody that gets funded this year will be considered a new grantee, even if you've had the program for years, right? Because it's a rebid year. And there will be some time delay between awarding and the contracting being allocated. If you are able to start up and get your 180 days in, that's super awesome, but no one is going to be penalized for only serving 160 days in this first year of a brand new contract year. I hope that answers that question. In lieu of that question, though, for your response in the application to your calendar year, you may want to write to kind of both the 160 and the 180 days. We would like to see like a typical year, calendar year in that question. That's kind of the only nuance of that.
So continuing on that, in the budget detail, should that reflect 160 days of service where applicable?
I mean, you're going to get the same amount of money, whether you serve 160 days or 180 days. So I'm not sure that that's super applicable to the budget. The only
If a
time we'll reduce funding is if you're serving less than 160 days, and you don't want to write your application that way.
If a partner provider location is not able to get started at the beginning of a school year, can those students be served at a lead agency location until the partner is able to get going?
Yes, absolutely. That would actually be the ideal scenario, right? That the students are able to be served at an eligible provider type and then perhaps shifted or moved mid-year. Now, of course, there's family engagement considerations there, making sure the families understand that shift may happen mid-year and those sorts of things. That shift can also happen in the second program year through continuation grant. So you can shift how your slots are allocated during the continuation grant process as well.
What is the name of the portal to find the community needs assessment from the governor?
The Open Data Portal. Google PA Governor Open Data Portal. That should take you to the homepage. And then you're going to want to hit schools that teach and then find the early learning section.
Can a flexible instruction plan take place to ensure that at least 160 days are served if we have a late startup in a new location?
No. Flexible instruction plans are not the basis anymore for Pennsylvania Pre-K Counts regular programming. In-person instruction is the expectation. Flexible instruction plans are a flexibility in place for extenuating circumstances. So we will not allow beginning of the year flexible instruction plans as locations are being opened.
So Deb, that is all of the questions for right now that have come in.
All right, great.
Here's another one.
That's okay. We have till 1.
Explain how you can allow more than one person to access. Let me start that over. Explain how you can allow more than one person access to enter the information in eGrants.
So again, I'm not our eGrants staff expert. We do have an eGrants help desk that you can reach out to. You can also reach out to the RA account, and our eGrants staff person, that's the expert, will follow up on that. But basically my understanding is that you set up a kind of administrative user. It might not be the right eGrants term, but there's someone in that user role that has kind of administrative capabilities that are set up that way. It's my understanding that that person can add people under their eGrants account, and they can give those people certain roles, including grant writing. There's lots of roles you can get within the eGrant system. That's my understanding. That can also happen. Again, the eGrants help desk is great. They can help you. If you have an eGrant specific question about setup or something like that, that's not PKC programmatic, but is really about eGrants, you can email the eGrants help desk directly. Or again, you can send questions into the RA account. We do have staff that can help with that, but we have limited staff and we are doing all of the processing right now. So, we'll do our best to get back to you as soon as possible to help you through those kind of technical issues.
Deb, do partner agencies submit a letter of intent?
No. Only the agency filling out the application as the lead agency will submit a letter of intent to apply.
At this time, we're just waiting for any additional questions to come in.
As we're waiting, just a reminder on this last slide, all questions regarding this RFA process should be directed now only to the RA account, other than what I just mentioned about the eGrants. If it's specific to eGrant system stuff and not Pre-K Counts policy or anything about the application questions, that can go directly to the eGrants team. Responses to questions given during today's webinar will not be considered official until they appear in the posted FAQ document. That statement also goes for email responses to the RA account questions. So what I typically try to do, if you do pose a question in the RA account, I do try to answer them unofficially with a response, but then we capture them on the FAQ with an official response. If similar questions are asked, they will be compiled into one question, and there will only be one question and response on the FAQ document. And if the question, the response to a question is already found within the application guidance document or one of the other resources that we've already provided, the response in the FAQ will only direct the person to the appropriate pages to reference for that response.
That there was possibly a perception that childcare providers need to list all their partners ahead of time, whereas school districts may not have to. Can you clarify the requirement for listing partners in the application across all applicant provider types?
I don't understand where that misconstrued question came from. So we're not listing partners on the LOI. If that's, is that what the, sorry, you moved the question, Kurt. Now I can't see it anymore.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were looking at it. So no, they didn't mention the LOI specifically. I think I'm going to assume we're talking about the partners chart, and maybe just needing clarification that all provider applicant types need to list their partners as part of their application.
If they're applying as a joint applicant, regardless of provider type, you have to list your partners. So I'm not sure where the clarity needs to be there, but there are 5 provider types. Any of those provider types could be a single applicant or a joint applicant. And all joint applicants have to list all their partners. Hopefully that clarifies that.
For the collaboration section, do we have to upload a letter of collaboration for each agency or just provide a detailed description?
You do not need to upload a letter of collaboration, a letter of support, MOU. That is not a requirement. The option is there for you to upload letters of support and letters of memorandums of understanding, if you so desire. So if you just want to answer the question and not upload anything, that's fine. If you want to upload, you can, in this section only, you can provide a little bit of description and then say, see uploaded memorandum of understanding. Or you can just put, see uploaded letter of support and memorandum of understanding. That's up to you just for this collaboration section within the application. It's the only section that we allow the reviewers to actually look at what's uploaded as part of the response.
Do the addresses and legal entity name listed with the AUN need to match the address and legal entity name on the pre-K counts grant application?
Yes.
Are the letters of support and/or formal agreements uploaded as one file or individual files? And is there a preferred
Individual
format?
files, please.
And is there a preferred format? PDF, Word?
Doesn't matter, as long as the description, you know, when you upload it, the name that shows is clear. I think that's, I forget what the exact language is that I read, but it says, please label them so that the reviewers know which question they go with. All right. So when I said individual, you could submit, like, I guess, multiple ones for one question. It probably would be easier for the reviewers if they were distinct uploads, clearly labeled with which question they go to. Again, think about the reviewers having to review all of this. That's my best guidance there for those uploads.
And there was a question which I answered, Deb, that was about the letter of intent, and when it asks how many slots are intended to be served, that number should encapsulate both lead agency slots and partner slots.
That's correct. The full application. The application is for the full amount of slots you're asking for.
In the past, if we would have had a blended funded classroom and the teacher was under blended funding with a $45,000 salary, so again, 20 children, 10 are pre-K counts, 10 are other funded, the staff salary would be 45,000, but only 50% allocated to the pre-K counts budget. Is that still the standard?
Yeah, so that's kind of why I paused and got a little, didn't hear what Kurt said about that other question after that. I was kind of thinking through that in my head. So for the question in the application, it asks for your pre-K counts ranges. So I think for that, we want to be, we don't necessarily have to cost allocate for that application question. We're really kind of looking at, if I'm a teacher in your program, even in a pre-K counts classroom, what is the range of my salary gonna kind of look like? Now, it does say for the 180 days of the pre-K counts program. So there's a little bit of cost allocation there. If you are putting, it's okay to put like, teacher will only be responsible for 10 students. This range is a portion of their salary. I think you should put that in the response so the reviewers are very clear what you're saying there. But the application question is kind of a broader range question, whereas the budget is where we're really getting to what are these teachers, specific teachers actually being paid. Okay, so there's a little bit of a difference there between what we're putting in the budget and what we're putting in that question in the application around the teacher, the general teacher ranges and what those look like.
Would a signed MOU with a school district be considered a letter of support as addressed in the collaboration section?
If it is within the date range that's mentioned in the application guidance, it's on school district letterhead, it is signed by a school district official with their title, and it specifically talks about the collaboration with the pre-K counts program, then yes.
Classrooms that are only used for pre-K counts during the school year and then are vacant during summer months, can the rent during the summer months be covered in the budget or included in the budget?
I would say no. If pre-K count is not actively open during the summer months, then you cannot use pre-K counts funding to fund that empty space. We have about 10 more minutes left until our time. I want to acknowledge that this was a very, very long webinar. I appreciate everyone hanging on with us. It's really important for everyone to understand what is included in the application guidance and know that that document is there for you to follow up and get some more clarification as you're filling out your application. So thank you for your time. We will hang on here for our remaining 10 minutes if more questions come in. So there's a asking to repeat an answer, but I don't know to which question. The recording will be posted on the How to Apply site, but it will take about a week. Well, not a week, till next Tuesday, I think is what we say in the application guidance, that it'll be posted after March 22nd.
Deb, one question that had come in that is now clarified. What are the, to my understanding, it's 333 points currently available on our PRI. So that would be the answer to the question of how many points are currently available on our PRI.
So I think maybe repeat the answer was about the paying for classroom space rental when the pre-K counts program is not in operation over summer months. That would not be allowable. Just waiting to see if there are any more questions coming in. We are about 10 minutes ahead of time here, so we'll wait for a few minutes here. If no more questions comes in, we may end a few minutes early. But we want to give everyone the opportunity to make sure they are able to ask their questions during the webinar. And again, if not, you can email the RA account with your questions moving forward. All right, not seeing any more questions coming in. We will not be sharing these slides. Everything covered in today's webinar is included in the application guidance. It's literally a copy and paste for the most part. So we are not going to be posting these slides. You can access all of this information in the application guidance that's already posted at the How to Apply site. There's also some extra information in that document. So you'll notice I kept referring to see page XXX for more detailed information on the scoring. So we really want to push you to the application guidance. So please use that document. So the rental question, it's kind of a very nuanced question. My suggestion for that, if you need to pay that rent year round, you would need to figure that out in your pre-K counts budget for the kind of 9 months of the year that you get paid for pre-K counts, and kind of in a way cost allocate the full year rental and kind of pay for that in a different way. But you can't pay for a non pre-K count space during the months that it's not being used. So we may need to talk a little bit more in depth about that in budget negotiations, if that's a situation you're in. You could also perhaps provide other services in that space, maybe, I don't know, other pre-K family engagement events or something over the summer months. I don't know, thinking about that. Again, that may be a more nuanced question that we can talk about during budget negotiations. All right, seeing no more questions coming in and recognizing we have been on this webinar for almost 4 hours, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you everyone for your time and good luck with your applications.